Hey guys, what's up? Today we're listening to The First Blood. I am the source of the Mikaelson line. So sit back, relax, and just enjoy the ride. And hey, if you're new here, hit that subscribe button. And if you're one of the OGs, welcome back. You already know. It's about to get real.
It hurt to wake up. It wasn't the poetic kind of pain. It wasn't like in the movies where someone gasps back to life. This pain was blunt and unfair, like someone had stabbed a knife into my skull and left it there out of curiosity. 1 second there was nothing. The next second there was everything. Pain. Old pain. It was so familiar that it no longer needed an introduction and just stayed, like old furniture you never bothered to get rid of. A sharp feeling ran through my chest, keeping me still. The water pressure pressed in on the coffin. The darkness was so complete it felt heavy. And awareness. Full. Complete. Abnormally awake. It was a realization that came softly, which for some reason made it even worse. I never slept. I'd been awake the whole time. 1,000 years. A literal millennium at the bottom of the ocean, drowning without dying, suffocating forever while my body politely refused to finish the job. If my jaw worked, I'd have screamed. If my lungs worked, I'd have begged. They didn't. Neither did I. Next came memories unasked for and keen. Both lives, both deaths. The first one was easy to remember. 19 years old. Walking home and thinking about nothing much. A car ran a red light. There was a sound like the world was bending in the middle, then followed by weightlessness, then blackness. I thought that was it. Turns out it wasn't. You have been chosen. This voice came from everywhere and nowhere at once. It wasn't loud, nor was it soft, it just was sure. The sure thing that made you feel petty just for being in its presence. I never saw what spoke to me. I only felt it, like standing too close to something huge and radioactive. You will be reborn into a world of vampires and witches. Of ancient magic. Of endless night. Great fantasy horror, love that for me. But first you can have one wish. I was dead, confused, and out of my mind with fear. Which, of course, is the perfect frame of mind in which to make a universe-altering decision. The fear was far away, muffled, like someone else's, and the words escaped before common sense could wrestle them to the ground. I want to be an original vampire, I said. Before the originals. The first. There was a pause. Long enough to be uncomfortable. Granted, the voice said. But know this. Power without wisdom is a burden. Immortality without purpose is a curse. In hindsight, that should have been a red flag the size of a continent. Then nothing. I was screaming, a baby's scream. Small lungs, no teeth, absolutely zero dignity. I grew up in a muddy village near what I'd later learn was Mystic Falls, in a world where Vikings still showed up uninvited, and magic was something not many people understood. I lived a normal life. No memories of gods or bargains or wishes. I was just Roy Stark. I hunted. I worked. I aged. I bled when I got cut. All the way up until the day the sky opened up, breaking like it was done pretending. I was 18 out hunting, when golden light tore through the air, sans sound, and slammed into the forest ahead of me. It was like someone had dropped a piece of the sun and forgotten to yell incoming. Naturally, I ran toward it, because I was 18 and apparently my survival instincts were still buffering. In the crater was a bottle. Golden glass, warm, beautiful, in the way that your brain just stopped asking questions. The liquid on the inside glowed like it had opinions. I drank it. Because of course I did. The power hit like a stroke of lightning. Strength surged through my muscles until everything felt too small. My senses sharpened so violently I could hear my own heartbeat arguing with my ribs. Hunger followed, savage and immediate, like my body had just recalled a very important appointment. I killed a deer. Drank its blood. I didn't think vampire. I thought, something has gone deeply wrong. I hid it. I continued to live. I stopped aging. Blood became something I'd replace food with. I learned restraint the hard way. That lasted until Esther Mikaelson found me. She regarded me as learned men regard lost manuscripts. Fascinated. Detached. Dangerous. You're immortal, she said. But not by any spell I recognize. Michael stood behind her, his arms crossed, his eyes cold. He considered me for a long moment before he said anything. We could use this. That was the moment when my life quietly ended for a second time. They tried experiments on me, drawing out my blood and carving runes into my flesh to study how rapidly I healed. Esther took notes while Michael held me down. 5 years of it. Your blood is extraordinary, Esther whispered once, reverent. Perfect. I tried to escape. Over and over again. Every time, magic and brute force shut me down. The dagger came sans drama. A silver bullet to the heart. The spell that Esther cast held my body in place. I still remember her smile, well, calm and clinical. You'll serve a higher purpose, she said. Then the coffin closed and the ocean claimed me. That was when everything came flooding back. The entity, the wish, the bottle. I hadn't misunderstood anything. I was the first one. And they had built their empire out of my blood. Klaus. Elijah. Rebecca. Legends born from theft. I drowned 1,000 years with that knowledge. Until something snapped. Power rippled through the bloodline like a shockwave. Hundreds of vampires were tied back to me. One connection flared brighter than the rest. A curse broke. The dagger loosened. Black water turned blue. Blue paled. Then moonlight broke through the surface. I laughed when I hit the air. It came out wrong. Land. Blood. To survive. I found a house. Stole some clothes. Picked up a small black device that lit up and spoke to me like that was normal. I dropped it. The date seared its way into my brain. October 15th, 2011. 1,000 years. I sat there in silence, dripping salt water onto someone else's floor. No allies. No plan. Just hunger, memories, and a grudge, a millennium in fermentation. I survived 1,000 years of drowning. Esther. Michael. You're overdue for a conversation. The moon was setting by the time I finally dragged myself off the beach house steps. I'd been sitting there for hours, staring at the horizon as it apologized. It didn't. The ocean looked the same as it always had. Which felt rude considering I'd spent 1,000 years dying in it. Free. Alive. And completely out of place. The world had moved on without me. Empires had risen and fallen. Languages had evolved. Somewhere along the way, people decided pants made of denim were a good idea. And here I was, barefoot, salt-crusted, and running on deer blood. The memories had stopped crashing into me all at once. They were settling now, stacking themselves into something resembling order. 2 lives. 2 memory sets. The first belonged to someone else. Or maybe the original version of me. I remembered dying at 19. The car. The impact. The darkness. Then the voice. The entity. The offer. One wish. I'd asked to be an original vampire. Before the originals. The first of my kind. Bold. Ambitious. Incredibly under-researched. Then nothing. The second set was Roy Stark. Born screaming in a Viking Age settlement. Mud, blood, wood smoke. A normal childhood if you ignored the raids and the general lack of plumbing. I grew up. I hunted. I survived. I had no idea I'd ever been anyone else. Until the sky cracked open. Barely. But barely was enough. It had taken 20 minutes to curl my fingers. Another 20 to press my hand against the lid of the coffin. The wood cracked. My shoulder protested loud and clear. I didn't stop. The lid shattered. Water rushed in. I grasped the dagger and pulled. It never reached the surface. But freedom did. I swam. Golden light fell from the heavens like a divine middle finger, and I ran toward it because I was 18 and apparently allergic to self-preservation. I found the bottle. Drank the glowing liquid. Became something unnatural and powerful and very, very confused. That bottle had been the wish. The entity hadn't lied. It had simply skipped the user manual. Without my memories of the deal, I hadn't known what I was. I hadn't understood that I was unprecedented. Ancient before ancient meant anything. Which made me perfect prey for Esther. She'd seen what I was. Studied me. Used me. 5 years of being bled like livestock while she figured out how to turn my stolen power into a spell. Klaus. Elijah. Rebecca. Cole. Finn. All of them born from my blood, my suffering, my mistake. Then the dagger. The coffin. The ocean. And 1,000 years of awareness. My memories hadn't come back until the silver pierced my heart. As if nearly dying again had shaken loose what the universe had tucked away for safekeeping. Power without wisdom is a burden, the entity had warned. No kidding. I stood, testing my legs. Still weak. Still stiff. But functional. Which, given the circumstances, felt like a win. The beach house had been generous. $200 in cash. Car keys. Clothes. And the talking black rectangle that I was still mildly suspicious of. I needed blood. Real blood. Animal blood was keeping me upright, but if I wanted my strength back, I needed better fuel. The car started when I turned the key. I stared at the steering wheel for a second, surprised. Apparently, driving was something my brain had decided to keep. Either that or pull the thing and don't crash translates well from carts to cars. I wasn't about to overthink it. The road led to a small town. A diner. A gas station. Houses with lights on. People living their lives blissfully unaware that monsters were real and one of them had just crawled out of the ocean. I parked behind the diner and waited. The cook stepped outside for a smoke break. Middle-aged. Tired. Thinking about absolutely nothing related to immortals. "Excuse me," I said. He looked up. Compulsion slid into place without effort. Smooth. Familiar. Like riding a bike you'd once been tortured into mastering. "You won't remember seeing me," I said. "But first, what year is it?" 2011, he replied blankly. "October." Good. At least the device hadn't been lying. Nearest city? Bangor. 2 hours northeast. Thanks. I released him. He blinked, frowned, and went back inside. I smiled. It still worked. That changed everything. If I could compel, I could survive. Information. Money. Blood was taken carefully. No corpses. No attention. I wasn't interested in announcing my return with a massacre. Yet. Bangor was bigger. Buildings. Traffic. People everywhere. Anonymity wrapped around me like a gift. I upgraded my wardrobe via the thrift store and mild mind control. Found a library. Sat in front of a computer as it might explode. The internet was a lot. Humanity had sprinted ahead while I was busy drowning. Machines flew. Phones did everything short of cooking dinner. Diseases that once wiped out cities were now footnotes. Magic, though, was still hidden. Most people didn't believe in it. Perfect. I searched for vampires. Found fiction. Romance novels. Teen dramas. I snorted. Somewhere out there, the originals were very real and very annoyed about being turned into metaphors. I closed my eyes and focused. The bloodline answered. Dozens of vampires are scattered across the world. And a handful of presences that burned hotter than the rest. The originals. Klaus burned brightest. The hybrid. Vampire and werewolf. The one who'd broken his curse and in doing so cracked mine. I couldn't pinpoint his location. Just his existence. Like feeling the sun through closed eyelids. I'd find him. Because if Klaus were alive, Esther might be too. And Michael. The thought settled like a promise. I found a cheap hotel. Paid cash. Compelled the clerk to forget me. Locked the door and sat on the bed staring at the wall. I was free. Weak. Lost. Furious. But free. The entity had given me what I asked for. Esther had stolen it. And now I was still here. The revenge would come later. Carefully. Thoughtfully. For now I needed to learn. Heal. Adapt. I lay back and closed my eyes. Tomorrow I will start becoming what I should have been all along. Not a victim. Not a battery. An original. The first. And when I finally stood in front of Esther and Michael again, they would learn something very important. Strength without perspective is just a slow way to break yourself. I've spent 1,000 years in the dirt, learning the hard way. And I was finally ready to use it wisely. The Bangor library smelled like old paper and never quite left. I fit right in. I sat in the far corner with my laptop open and my third cup of coffee cooling beside me. I didn't need caffeine. Vampires didn't get tired that way. But habits died harder than humans, and apparently mine included pretending coffee did something. Google was a revelation. Type a question. Blink. Receive answers. Hundreds of them. Thousands if you felt like scrolling. The last time I'd needed information, it involved dusty tomes and monks who guarded knowledge like it was a sin to share. Now humanity had decided everything should be available instantly, preferably with autocomplete. Progress was terrifying. I started simple. Current events 2011. Wars. Protests. Revolutions. Something called the Arab Spring. A president named Obama made me pause for a moment longer than the rest. Not because it was strange. Because it wasn't. The world had changed, but not the way fantasy novels like to pretend it did. Same chaos. Same power struggles. New fonts. Then I went looking for what mattered. Supernatural activity in New Orleans. 90% garbage. Ghost tours. Voodoo shops selling authenticity in plastic packaging. Conspiracy blogs written by people who desperately wanted monsters to be real because it made their lives more interesting. Buried under that mess were forums. Real ones. Encrypted. Paranoid. Hidden behind layers of security and bad grammar. I'd needed 3 proxy servers and a password I'd compelled out of a hacker in Portland who cried when I made him give it up. Not my proudest moment. But he got to keep his kidneys. The supernatural community had gone digital. Vampires posted encrypted messages disguised as stock tips. Witches traded spell components on black market sites that also sold stolen credit cards and illegal pharmaceuticals. Werewolves tracked pack movements through GPS coordinates coded as hiking trails. And everywhere whispers about New Orleans. Marcel Gerard came up again and again. Vampire king of the French Quarter. Former slave turned immortal turned ruler. He enforced rules. Kept the peace. Or at least kept the body count low enough that humans didn't notice. The forums loved him or hated him with equal passion. No middle ground. Apparently, immortality didn't cure tribalism. The Mikaelsons appeared less often, but when they did, the tone shifted. Klaus had been spotted in Mystic Falls, Virginia. Curse broken. Hybrid unlocked. The supernatural world was losing its collective mind over it. Power like that didn't happen quietly. It was the equivalent of a nuclear test. My jaw tightened. Klaus's hybrid nature came from me. Esther had used my blood to make her children vampires. And when she'd unlocked Klaus's werewolf side, she'd tapped into something buried deep in my DNA. He was walking around with power that should have been mine. He probably didn't even know I existed. Yet, I spent 3 days in that library. History, technology, politics, pop culture. I learned more in 72 hours than I had in my entire first life. Some of it was useful. Some of it was baffling. Why did people care about a video called Charlie Bit My Finger? Why was everyone voluntarily giving their personal information to something called social media? Why did every website demand I prove I wasn't a robot when I was, in fact, something much worse? The world had become faster, louder, more connected. And I was a ghost trying to haunt it without leaving fingerprints. The ATM beeped cheerfully as it spat out $200. It was 2 in the morning. I had my hood pulled low. The security camera captured my face for exactly 3 seconds before I compelled it to replay the previous hour on a loop. The bank system believed I was Robert Chen from Augusta, who definitely hadn't authorized this withdrawal and was probably sleeping peacefully. Robert would get his money back. Banks had insurance. And I needed cash more than I needed moral purity. Compulsion made everything easy. Too easy. Catch someone's eye. Give a command. Watch them obey. Money. Information. Keys. Their memories blurred and I was gone before they even realized something had happened. It was intoxicating. After 1,000 years of being helpless, having the world bend when I spoke felt like breathing after drowning. It also felt exactly like something Esther would do. That sobered me faster than guilt ever could. I pocketed the cash and walked away. The street was quiet. A homeless man slept in a doorway. A couple stumbled out of a bar down the block, laughing too loudly. Normal life. Fragile. Unaware. I'd been practicing this for 2 weeks now. Acting human. Blending in. My 19-year-old brain helped. I remembered smartphones, social media, and the general shape of modern life. But there were gaps. Slang tripped me up. References flew over my head. Someone had said, YOLO at me in a coffee shop. I'd waited for the explanation. They laughed and walked away. I still had no idea what it meant. My current car, the 3rd one that month, came from a mall parking lot in Lewiston. I drove it to a motel on the edge of town. $12 a night. Cash only. No questions. The room smelled like cigarettes and mildew, but it had a bed and a door that locked. Luxury. I lay back and pulled up the map I'd been building. Red pins for vampires. Blue for witches. Green for werewolves. New Orleans was a mess of color. More supernatural activity than anywhere else in North America. The Mikaelsons weren't there yet. Klaus was still in Mystic Falls, according to the forums, playing whatever long game he favored. But they'd go to New Orleans eventually. The city was a power vacuum, and Klaus had never met a throne he didn't want to sit on. I just had to get there first. My strength was coming back. Slowly. 20%. Maybe 25 on a good night. Enough to fight humans. Enough to compel crowds. Not enough to survive a serious fight with an original. That had to change. Animal blood kept me functional, but it wasn't enough. Drinking it felt like trying to put out a fire with a straw. Human blood would fix that. Criminals, I decided. Murderers. Abusers. People the world wouldn't miss. It was a justification. I knew that. But it helped me sleep. Tomorrow, I decided. Start tomorrow. Boston had a serial killer problem. I found out from a news article buried on page 6. 3 bodies in 2 months. Same neighborhood. Throats cut. No leads. Perfect. I found him on my second night. 40s. Average height. Forgettable face. He followed a woman home from her shift at a convenience store, hand in his jacket pocket. Knife. Confident stride. Experienced. I stepped out of an alley ahead of him. He stopped. Smiled. Wrong place, kid, he said. Walk away. No. Confusion flickered. Then fear. I met his eyes. Drop the knife. Kneel. He did. The knife hit the pavement. He sank to his knees, fully awake, fully aware, watching himself obey. Good. I explained why he was there. He begged. He promised. I bit down. The blood was hot. Rich. Human. Power flooded my system like something snapping into place. I crushed his throat and drank until he was empty. When I left him in the alley, the woman was gone. Safe. Unaware. That was the first. Over the next 2 weeks, I fed my way down the East Coast. Dealers. Pimps. Abusers. I wasn't a hero. I was a predator removing competition. But my strength climbed, and by the time I reached Richmond, I was at 30%. Functional. Dangerous. Time to go to New Orleans. 16 hours on the road. 1 straight shot. Gas stops. Car swaps. Too much time alone with my thoughts. I was done waiting. New Orleans appeared at sunset, glowing amber under a humid sky. No towering skyline. No glass monuments. But it felt alive. I parked outside the city limits and watched the rain turn pavement into mirrors. Somewhere in there, Marcel ruled. Somewhere in there, witches schemed. And someday soon, the Mikaelsons would arrive and burn everything down. I wasn't ready to face them. But I was ready to watch. I typed a note into my phone. Establish base. Observe Marcel. Find the power source. Stay hidden. Simple. I drove into the city. The warehouse district smelled like rust, old fish, and regret. I walked through it just past midnight, hood up, hands in my pockets, pretending I belonged there. Which I did, actually. Nobody sane wandered around this part of the city after dark. That made it ideal. 3 blocks in, I found my prize. A warehouse with boarded-up windows and a padlocked door that looked like it had last been opened during the Reagan administration. The building leaned into its neighbors like a drunk who'd lost the argument but refused to go home. Out front, a for sale sign had faded to the point of being more of a suggestion. Perfect. I ripped the padlock off like it had personally offended me. The door groaned open, dramatic about it, and I stepped inside. Dust. Darkness. That damp, sweet rot of a place forgotten by time and city inspectors alike. Still, the structure was solid. Concrete floors, steel...
Wait! Hold up. Stop for a sec. Look, if you've already made it this far into the video and you're still here, come on, subscribe, bro. All right, I see you rolling your eyes. I'm moving. I'll get out of the way now so you can get back to the good stuff. But seriously, stick around and finish listening. It's worth it.
Beams and a second level with a glass-walled office overlooking the main floor. No squatters. No needles. No mysterious stains that raised uncomfortable questions. Honestly? 5 stars. I turned on my phone's flashlight and swept the beam around. Old crates. A rusted forklift. And a door in the back corner that absolutely led to a basement, which in supernatural real estate terms usually meant either perfect hideout or definitely haunted. I checked it anyway. The stairs creaked like they were considering filing a complaint, but they held. The basement itself was cold, windowless, and blissfully isolated. Exposed pipes, concrete floor, nothing flammable. Ideal for sleeping through daylight hours without worrying about curious humans or unexpected sunbeams. Not that sunlight hurt me. Esther hadn't bothered with that particular weakness. Still, old instincts die hard. Underground felt safe. Familiar. I went back upstairs and mentally moved in. Office for research. Main floor for supplies. Basement for sleeping. If I compelled the utility companies to turn on water and electricity without asking questions, I'd have a functioning base of operations. A lair if I were feeling dramatic. Which I was. By dawn I had a list. Blood bags from hospitals. A better laptop. Clothes that didn't scream feral immortal crawled out of the ocean. Furniture. Weapons maybe. Though worst case I could always make those out of my own blood. DIY projects were apparently my thing now. I sat in the office as the sun rose, light filtering through the boards on the windows, and felt something unfamiliar settle into my chest. Contentment. This place wasn't stolen. It wasn't borrowed. It was mine. And from here I'd figure everything else out. Marcel's vampires moved like soldiers. I watched them from a rooftop 3 blocks from the main square, binoculars pressed to my eyes. 6 vampires patrolling in pairs, checking in via phone every 20 minutes. They dressed like normal people. Jeans. Jackets. No capes. Very disappointing. But the way they moved gave them away. Too smooth. Too alert. Like predators pretending to be pedestrians. One of them stopped a drunk who was zigzagging down the sidewalk. A few words were exchanged. The drunk laughed, clapped the vampire on the shoulder, and wandered off smiling. Compulsion. Probably sent him home before he wandered into traffic or tried to pick a fight with something that could bench press a truck. I lowered the binoculars. The forums hadn't exaggerated. Marcel ran a tight ship. He'd taken control of New Orleans decades ago and built a system that actually worked. Rules. Structure. Feeding without massacres. Humans protected, vampires fed, everyone pretending the supernatural didn't exist. Annoyingly impressive. Also dangerous. If Marcel found out about me, he wouldn't ask questions. He'd see a wild card and eliminate it. And at 30% strength, I wasn't ready to test my luck against a city's worth of organized vampires. So I watched. For a week I learned patrol routes, shift changes, and blind spots. Identified the inner circle. 8 vampires who moved with authority listened to without hesitation. One of them, Thierry, was clearly second in command. When Marcel wasn't around, Thierry spoke, and everyone else shut up. Good to know. I also learned where Marcel lived. A compound in the French Quarter. Renovated plantation-style building, balconies, courtyards, and enough vampires inside to make storming it a creative form of suicide. Filed that away under absolutely not. What interested me more was the tension simmering beneath the surface. The witches despised Marcel. They didn't hide it well. I watched them cross streets to avoid vampires. Overheard an argument outside a bar about ancestral magic and territorial boundaries. The vampire backed down not because he was scared, but because Marcel's rules demanded it. The werewolves were worse off. They stayed out of the French Quarter entirely, keeping to the bayou like smart people avoiding a bar fight. New Orleans wasn't a supernatural community. It was a powder keg. Vampires, witches, and werewolves all holding matches. Marcel was the only thing keeping them from lighting it. What happens when he's gone? I wondered. Klaus probably. Klaus would show up, murder someone important, and call it diplomacy. Unless I got there first. The magical disturbance hit me on my 9th night in the city. I was walking through the French Quarter, hood up, blending in with tourists and locals alike, when it slammed into me like a freight train made of pure wrongness. Power. Raw, violent, and deeply unsettling. It tugged at something buried in my blood, something ancient and newly awake, and made my teeth ache. I stopped dead. Tourists bumped into me, muttered apologies, and kept moving. I stayed frozen, heart hammering, senses screaming. The power was coming from there. A church. St. Anne's according to the sign. Old stone, modest size, the kind of building that had seen centuries of prayers and secrets. And right now it was leaking magic like a cracked reactor. Something incredibly powerful was inside. I moved closer. The doors were locked and wards hummed beneath the stone, layered and intentional. Keep people out. Or keep something in. That was comforting. In the way, discovering a loaded gun under your pillow is comforting. I reached out with the bloodline connection, trying to understand the source. The power felt young. Unfocused. Like someone had handed godlike energy to a teenager and told them to improvise. A witch. Definitely. A dangerous one. I stood there for 20 minutes, just listening to the pulse of it. Alive. Contained. Angry. You're either going to save my life or ruin it, I thought. I memorized the location and left. I wasn't ready. Not yet. Too weak. Too exposed. And Marcel's patrols were still thick in the area. But I'd be back. By the time I returned to the warehouse, my head was pounding. The disturbance had done something to me. Flipped a switch. I could feel vampires now. Not faces or names, just presences. Threads stretching out across the city, all leading back to me in a way that made my skin crawl. I sat in the basement, back against the wall, and tried to process that without panicking. The originals had been created with my blood. That made every vampire in existence part of my lineage. Family. Problem. The connection had always been there. I'd just been too dead to notice. Now I could feel them. Hundreds. Maybe thousands. A constant hum at the edge of my awareness, like standing in a crowded room where everyone was talking at once. Uncomfortable didn't begin to cover it. But if I could feel them, maybe I could influence them. Hemokinesis. Blood manipulation. My one remaining advantage. I focused on my hand, tried to pull the blood forward to shape it. Nothing. I tried again, harder, pushing until my head throbbed. A single drop of blood welled up on my fingertip. I stared at it. Then I laughed. Short. Bitter. Pathetic. Still, it was something. Proof that the power was there, buried but alive. I just had to dig it out. I wiped the blood away and stood, body aching from the effort. I needed more strength. More blood. And answers about that church. Outside, rain began to fall, tapping against the warehouse roof like impatient fingers. I listened and thought about the witch in St. Anne's. About Marcel's kingdom. About the Mikaelsons, wherever they were, blissfully unaware of what they'd left behind. New Orleans was a powder keg. And I had the match. The French Quarter hummed at midnight. Jazz spilled out of open doors. Tourists laughed too loudly, drank too much, and believed the city loved them back. Neon lights reflected off wet pavement like the streets were trying to flirt. I walked through it like a rumor, hood up, hands in my pockets, another anonymous shape in a city that specialized in forgetting faces. I'd been circling St. Anne's for 3 nights now. Like a paranoid raccoon guarding a trash can full of secrets. That church was the epicenter. The power signature pulsed from it constantly, not subtle, not polite, the magical equivalent of leaving your high beams on in a dark parking lot. The wards were strong, layered with care and desperation, but their purpose wasn't to keep intruders out. They were built to keep something in. Tonight, that something decided it had had enough. I felt her before I saw her. The power moved, sliding out of the church and into the surrounding streets, quick and erratic. Young. Female. Terrified. The magical equivalent of a runaway heartbeat. I followed. She was a kid. 16, maybe 17. Dark hair pulled back like she'd done it in a hurry, jeans and a hoodie that had clearly lost an argument with time and laundry detergent. She moved fast, checking over her shoulder every few steps, hands sparking faintly with magic she didn't fully understand. Untrained. Overloaded. Dangerous in the way live wires are dangerous. She wasn't alone. The witch following her was older. 30s. Confident stride. No attempt to hide. She wanted to be seen. Wanted the fear to do half the work for her. The girl turned into an alley. Dead end. I sighed and climbed the fire escape of the adjacent building, settling onto the metal platform above just in time to watch the disaster unfold. Davina, the older witch said, stepping into the alley like she owned it. Her voice had the sharp impatience of someone who was tired of explaining herself. Enough. You can't hide from this. The harvest needs to be completed. Davina backed against the wall, power snapping around her like static. Stay away from me, Sophie. The ancestors are furious, Sophie continued, palms already glowing. You were meant to die with the others. Your survival disrupted the balance. I don't care about the balance, Davina shot back. You wanted to slit my throat and call it sacred? Fair objection. Sophie lifted her hands, magic gathering, jaw clenched. I'm taking you back. Agnes will finish what she started. Something twisted in my chest. Not pain. Recognition. The bloodline connection stirred, reacting to Davina's power, and my compulsion reached out automatically. A reflex. 1,000 years of instinct telling the situation to calm down. It hit her and slid off like rain on glass. I blinked. Excuse me? That didn't happen. Ever. Before I could analyze it, Sophie launched her spell. Fire, unfocused and desperate, more anger than skill. I dropped into the alley. The blood responded before my brain caught up. Sloppy, weak but obedient. I cut my palm and pulled, shaping it into a translucent barrier just in time to smother the flames midair. The fire died with a hiss. Sophie froze. Stared at me. Then at the blood as it melted back into liquid and returned to my skin. What are? Leave, I said. My voice came out rough and used like gravel dragged across concrete. Now, she tried to read me. Vampire, obviously, but something deeper made her pupils dilate, fear slamming into her instincts like a warning siren. She didn't argue. Smart woman. She turned and ran. I turned to Davina. She was still pressed against the wall, magic crackling defensively, breathing hard. Her hands shook, but her eyes stayed locked on me. Fear, yes. Panic, no. You're welcome, I said. What are you? She asked. Complicated. Try me. I studied her. Angry. Defiant. And carrying far more power than her body was designed to handle. It wasn't wrong exactly. Just excessive. Like someone had poured an ocean into a teacup and told it to behave. Someone who knows what it's like to be used, I said. That woman wanted to sacrifice you. Davina's jaw tightened. The harvest. For girls die, witches get their power back. Except Marcel saved me, so now I'm the problem. Marcel, I repeated. The vampire king. He's protecting me. Hiding me in the church. She straightened. Who are you? Roy. And the blood thing? I'm old, I said. Older than Marcel. Older than most things you've heard bedtime stories about. She squinted. You manipulated blood. Yes. I've never seen that before. That's because I'm very special, I said dryly. And deeply inconvenient. She actually stepped closer. Why did you help me? Because I saw someone about to hurt a kid. That's it. That's it. She didn't believe me. But she didn't call me a liar either. They'll come after you, she said. The witches. They're tied to something big. The ancestors. I've met ancestors, I said. They're never as impressive as they think they are. She hesitated. You tried to compel me earlier. I did. It didn't work. No, I agreed. It really didn't. Magic blocks it. Since the harvest failed, I'm immune. No control. No compulsion. I'm free. The word landed harder than she realized. Good, I said quietly. Stay that way. She blinked. You're not angry? Why would I be? I shrugged. Everyone else I meet, I could make them do what I want. You have a choice. That makes you rare. She stared at me like I'd just spoken another language. I have to go, she said finally. Before Marcel notices I left. Be careful. You too. She paused. Thank you. Then she was gone, slipping past me and disappearing into the quarter. I stood there a long moment, alone in the alley, letting the night settle. Davina Claire. A teenage witch with stolen power, hunted by her own people, protected by a vampire king. Immune to my compulsion. That had never happened before. Not with originals. Not with alphas. Not with anything. And instead of feeling threatened, I felt something dangerously close to relieved. Back at the warehouse, sleep didn't come easily. My thoughts kept looping back to the alley, to the way my power had stopped cold. For the first time since I woke up, I'd met someone I couldn't control. And for the first time in 1,000 years, that felt right. Tomorrow, I'd figure out how to keep her alive. Because some people weren't meant to be bent. They were meant to choose. The warehouse door creaked open at exactly 10 p.m. I knew the time because I'd been staring at the clock on my laptop, not because I cared, but because staring at clocks is what you do when you're pretending you're not anxious. I was upstairs in the office, scrolling through encrypted witch forums, reading about the harvest ritual for the 15th time, and hoping it would suddenly become less horrifying. It didn't. 4 girls. Sacrificed every few generations. Ancestral magic restored, covens empowered, blood washed away with ritual justification and a shrug. Ancient magic had a talent for being efficient and cruel in equal measure. Marcel, saving Davina, had snapped the cycle in half. The witches wanted to fix that. Davina wanted to keep breathing. I was firmly pro-breathing. I closed the laptop as my senses reached out to me. One presence. Female. Magic so bright it lit up my bloodline connection like someone had kicked over a lantern in a dark room. Davina. I stepped to the railing overlooking the main floor. She stood dead center in the warehouse, fists clenched, power crackling faintly around her like static. She looked small in the empty space. Defiant anyway. How did you find me? I asked. She didn't jump. Didn't pretend surprise. I followed your blood trail from the alley. It's different. Old. I can feel it. Great, I muttered. Witches can track blood now. That's comforting. I'm not a normal witch, she said, glancing around at the crates, folding chairs, and questionable life choices that made up my home. This is where you live? For now. It's depressing. So is ritual murder, I said. Pick your poison. That earned me a flicker of a smile. She stopped at the bottom of the stairs. I need to know what you are. Not the vague I'm old nonsense. I walked down slowly, deliberately, giving her space. She tracked me like a predator tracks prey. Didn't run. Didn't relax either. Long story, I said. You want the version that makes sense or the one that's true? True. Of course she did. I gestured to the crates. She hesitated, then sat. I took the opposite one, leaving a careful buffer zone. Boundaries mattered. I'm older than the originals, I said. Her brow furrowed. Esther and Mikaelson? Those two. I nodded. They found me. Used me. Drained my blood to fuel the spell that made the originals. When they were done, they stabbed me with a silver dagger and dropped me into the ocean in a sealed coffin. She stared. How long? 1,000 years. Her face went slack. Jesus. Yeah. He didn't help. I explained about Klaus breaking his curse, the ripple through the bloodline, and the dagger weakening just enough. I kept it factual. No drama. The facts were dramatic enough. When I finished, she sat there quietly. So, she said slowly, you're older than the originals. That makes you what? The first vampire? Proto-original, I said. Didn't apply for the title. And the blood thing? Hemokinesis. Blood manipulation. Mine, other vampires, and anyone tied to the bloodline. Which is all of them. Her eyes widened. You can control every vampire alive? In theory. In practice, I'm running on fumes. Maybe 35%. I can make shields and bleed creatively. Exploding people from the inside is still off the table. For now. Yes, I agreed. For now. She leaned back, absorbing that. So you're ancient, ridiculously powerful, recovering from a millennium of torture, and you helped me because? Because I know what it's like to be used as a battery, I said. They want to kill you for power. Esther and Michael did the same to me. Silence. Except, she said quietly, you're ancient. And I'm 17. You just turned 17, I corrected. Last month. She blinked. How did you? I research, I said. It's my thing. She shook her head, half amazed, half unnerved. Marcel's protecting me, she said. He saved me during the harvest. Now he's hiding me in the church. Why? Because he's decent. And because I'm useful. She hesitated. I can disrupt magic. Kill vampires if I lose control. Impressive. Terrifying. I remember that phase, I said dryly. She snorted despite herself. Agnes wants the ritual finished, she continued. If she gets me. She won't. Davina looked at me sharply. Why do you care? Because I spent 1,000 years being someone else's resource, I said. I don't let that happen twice. No strings? No strings. She studied me carefully. I can't be compelled. I noticed. The harvest magic protects me. No vampire control. No witch domination. That's why you get to choose, I said. And why I'm not mad about it. You're not. I'm relieved. It's exhausting being the only one in the room with free will. That made her smile. Really smile. So, she said, standing, what are you suggesting? A cautious alliance. I keep witches off you. You help me navigate magical politics. No debts. And Marcel? I won't challenge him. But if anyone hurts you, I won't ask permission to respond. She laughed softly. You're insane. I've had time to practice. She headed for the door, then paused. Roy. Yeah. Thanks. For seeing me as a person. You are one, I said. Never forget that. She left, her power fading into the night. I stood alone in the warehouse and realized something uncomfortable. I'd made a friend. A dangerous, volatile, magic-proof teenage witch friend. Still, after 1,000 years alone, I'd take it. The blood bag tasted like ass. I sat in the warehouse basement, third bag of the night drained, and felt the slow tick of strength returning. 40%. Maybe 45 if I pushed. Not enough to punch an original into next week, but enough to handle most problems that wandered through my life. Which, at this point, included a surprising number of murder-minded witches and Marcel's vampires. Speaking of which, I felt them before I heard them. 10 vampires moving like a single well-oiled machine through the industrial district. They weren't hiding. They weren't subtle. They wanted me to know they were coming. I crushed the empty bag, tossed it in the trash, and shrugged into my jacket. If Marcel wanted to play city cop, we'd do it my way. The rooftop overlooked the French Quarter like a watchtower. I perched there, legs dangling over a 4-story drop, feeling like a brooding teenager in a bad music video, waiting for the Vampire King to show up. 10 vampires hit the surrounding rooftops. Thierry. Diego. 8 others I didn't know but could feel through the bloodline connection. Descendants of the originals. Descendants of me. My mood did not improve. Marcel stepped onto the roof, arms crossed, leather jacket casual, eyes ancient. His lieutenants flanked him like jazz musicians at a funeral. Thierry, smooth, calculating. Diego, younger, twitchy, clearly auditioning for a punch-first, think-later role. You're either very brave or very stupid, Marcel said. Option 3, I don't care, I offered. He didn't smile. You should. This is my city. My people. My rules. And yet here I am, breaking exactly none of them. He approached slowly, deliberately, like a chess piece trying to figure out if it could eat me without getting eaten first. Sophie Devereaux came to me yesterday, he said. Scared out of her mind. Said a vampire stopped her from retrieving Davina. Manipulated blood like a weapon, swatted her magic aside. That wouldn't be you, would it? Depends. Is Sophie the witch trying to slit a kid's throat for a ritual? The harvest isn't murder. Save it, I interrupted. I don't care about witch politics. I care about kids not getting their throats slit because some dead ancestors are mad they died. Marcel's jaw tightened. Davina is under my protection. Good. So we're on the same side. He gestured at his people surrounding us. Are we? You're an unknown vampire in my city. You scared a 30-year-old witch into running, and now you're interested in the girl I'm hiding. That doesn't scream friendly. Fair. I'm not here to challenge you, I said slowly. I'm here because I've been used as a power source before. And I don't like watching it happen to others. Used how? Long story. Coffins. Blood. A millennium you wouldn't believe. Millennium, he said flatly. Give or take. You're saying you're older than the originals. Older? By 1,000 years. Silence stretched like a rubber band about to snap. Prove it, Marcel said finally. Prove what? That you're that old. That's powerful. Because right now you look like a skinny kid with a big mouth. I smiled, the kind of smile that made you nervous. Sure. Want a demonstration? Yes, he said. I want to know exactly what I'm dealing with. I looked past him at the 10 vampires, descendants of me, and reached out. Gently. Carefully. Like touching a spiderweb without breaking it. All 10 froze mid-step. Eyes wide, bodies stiff. Not compulsion, physical, primal. Their blood wouldn't obey them. Marcel stayed free, but I could see the shift behind his eyes, calculating, cautious, predator evaluating predator. I'm older than your entire species, I said quietly. Every vampire traces back to me. That means I can control their blood. Your army. All of them. I released them. The 10 vampires stumbled, looking like they'd just been punched in the soul. Marcel didn't flinch. Not exactly. Calculating. Dangerous. Perfectly fine, until he realized how precarious his position was. That's not a power I've ever seen, he said slowly. Because I'm the only one who has it. And you used it to save Davina from Sophie. Yes. A fraction of it. Blood shield. Stopped her spell. Made her run. Why? Because kids shouldn't be sacrificed. For ancestors. Or anything else. Tension stretched until it felt like a drum about to snap. Then Marcel nodded. Non-aggression pact. You protect Davina from witches. I protect her from everything else. We stay out of each other's way unless our interests align. Deal. No handshake needed. Mutual predator respect looks like this. Marcel turned, paused, and looked back. Roy Stark. One last thing. If you hurt Davina, millennium of experience or not, I will find a way to end you. Fair, I said. But if you let the witches reach her because you're too busy playing king, I'll do the same to you. He laughed. Short, genuine, surprised. I think I like you. Don't. I'm terrible company. He left. I stayed on the rooftop, alone again, the bloodline connection thrumming in my chest. Every vampire in the city, mine to feel, mine to command if I wanted. 3 days later, everything changed. The originals arrived. Klaus, Elijah, Rebecca. The bloodline screamed in my chest like a war drum. I doubled over, barely holding the laptop steady. They weren't shadows or memories, they were real. Flesh. Blood. Teeth. History walking through the city like it had paid rent. I staggered to the window. The French Quarter sprawled below, oblivious to the supernatural politics about to unfold. Klaus, theatrical as ever. Elijah, pristine and calm. Rebecca, casually dangerous. Marcel played host, diplomacy masking the tension underneath. Klaus scanned the rooftops like he could smell trouble. I froze. Not ready. Not yet. Then the pain hit. Chest. Bloodline connection. Fire spreading through veins like gasoline. Vision blurred. Teeth ached. Bones shifted. My jaw elongated. My canines longer. Wrong. Wolf. The hybrid blood. Klaus had awakened mine through the connection, and it burned like wildfire. 5 minutes of agony. Hours in memory. When it stopped, I was half human, half predator, lying in a puddle of sweat on a rooftop that suddenly felt very small. Instincts flashed. Territorial. Predatory. Wolf. Awake. Furious. I forced myself to sit. Hands shaking. Sleeve shredded. Teeth wrong. Vision golden tinted. Klaus still laughed below. Had no idea he'd just triggered this. Not yet. I stumbled back to the warehouse. Every sound is too loud. Every smell is too sharp. By the time I reached the basement, the wolf and the vampire coexisted in tense truce. This was going to be interesting. And painful. Really, really painful. The next 3 days were pure, unfiltered hell. I spent them in the basement trying to reason with the wolf that had woken up inside me. That plan did not go well. Every time I closed my eyes, I felt the bones shift, the muscles stretch, and instincts rise. Territorial rage. Predatory focus. A deep primal desire to mark the city as mine and eat anyone who disagreed. Not exactly my idea of a productive afternoon. Day 1, I tried meditation. Sat cross-legged on the concrete floor, breathing slowly, trying to calm the chaos in my head. The wolf laughed at me. Metaphorically. Wolves don't actually laugh. But I could feel the contempt. Day 2, I tried feeding. 4 blood bags, then a hunt in the warehouse district. Ended up draining a drug dealer who had apparently thought punching strangers was a good idea. My strength ticked up, 45%. Wolf quieted for an hour. Then came back hungrier than ever as I just teased it with appetizers. Day 3, I gave up on control. I tried acceptance. I stripped to my waist in the empty warehouse and let the transformation happen. 10 minutes of bones cracking, muscles tearing and rebuilding, face elongating, fangs forcing their way through gums, hands becoming claws capable of slicing steel. I ended up on all fours, panting, staring at the concrete floor like a deranged yoga student. Wolf. I stood or tried to. Half human, half wolf. Dark fur covered my arms and chest, claws still awkwardly long, eyes flickering gold like molten metal. Jesus. I walked over to the mirror I'd propped against the wall. Reflection, horrific and kind of magnificent. Halfway between man and wolf. Bipedal, but clearly the wolf wasn't done yet. Hybrid. Somewhere between, don't mess with me and please help me figure out how to open a beer with these claws. I hated it. Not the power itself. The wolf was amazing, terrifying, and absurdly fast. I hated losing control. The way it wanted to hunt, to rip through anyone who challenged me, to own the city outright. 20 minutes later, I forced the shift back. Human again. Shaking, exhausted, regretting every decision I'd ever made about hybrid life. The wolf was getting stronger. Every transformation made it easier to shift, harder to resist. I needed help. Or at least intel. The next night, Davina found me on the warehouse roof, sitting like a broody statue and staring at the skyline. "You've been avoiding me," she said, climbing through the window I'd left open. "Been busy." "Busy hiding?" She sat beside me, careful to keep a polite 3-foot radius. "Marcel said the originals are here. Klaus, Elijah, Rebecca. Everyone's flipping out." "Smart. You're freaking out too." I glanced at her. 2 old eyes. Eyes that had seen things no teenager should. "I'm fine," I lied. "Your eyes are flickering gold every time you blink." "That's not fine." "Damn. Didn't even notice." "Hybrid transformation," I muttered. Klaus broke his curse. Being near him triggered mine. Now I'm trying to figure out how to control it before I accidentally eat someone's face. Davina blinked. "You're a hybrid too?" "Apparently. Esther used my blood to create the originals. When Klaus became a hybrid, it activated the dormant werewolf DNA in me through the bloodline connection." I rubbed my eyes. "Complicated. Everything about you is complicated." "Fair." She pulled her knees to her chest. "Is it painful?" "Like being torn apart and put back together. Every single time." "That sucks." "Yeah. Big time. Would not recommend." We sat in silence for a while. The city hummed below. Jazz music, laughter, the occasional siren. Ordinary humans, blissfully unaware of the wolf and vampire drama happening above them. "Marcel wants to meet you," she said eventually. "Officially. Says you protected me, aren't trying to take over his city, and he'd rather have you as an ally than a mysterious stranger with homicidal potential." "What do you want me to do?" I asked. She raised an eyebrow. "Why does that matter?" "Because if Marcel and I end up enemies, you're the one stuck in the middle. So what do you want? Should I meet him or stay hidden and brood quietly?" She considered. "Meet him. He's a good guy. Protective, yes, but he's kept me alive while the witch community tried to kill me. You two working together would be safer. For me. Then I'll meet him." "Just like that. Just like that." She smiled, the slightest twitch of amusement. "You're weird, you know that?" "Been told." She stood, dusting off her jeans. "I should get back before he sends a search party." "But Roy." "Yeah. The originals being here, does it change anything? Your plans, I mean." I thought about Klaus, Elijah, and Rebecca. About the wolf inside me, impatient and furious. "Yeah," I said quietly. "It changes everything." Davina nodded like she'd expected that answer, then disappeared back through the window. Leaving me alone. Alone with the wolf. Alone with the city I could barely see straight anymore. I stood, walked inside, and started planning. Control. Information. Power. And maybe, just maybe, I'd survive what came next. The pain started at midnight. I was in the basement, trying to sleep, or at least look like I was sleeping, when my bones decided to stage a revolt. Not break. That would have been merciful. No, they were reshaping, grinding against each other like tectonic plates arguing over rent. My body was confused. I was confused. And the wolf? The wolf didn't care. I bit down on my forearm to keep from screaming. Tasted blood. My own blood, which was annoying because my teeth were now too long, too sharp, and my gums were on fire. Not now. Not like this. But the wolf didn't care. It had been patient for 4 days while I tried meditation, control, and feeding, all useless bullshit. Now it was done waiting. My spine arched, vertebrae popping one by one. My ribcage stretched, muscles tearing and rebuilding around bones that didn't exist 5 minutes ago. My hands changed first, fingers elongating, nails turning into claws that scraped the concrete like a drummer who'd never been taught rhythm. I crawled to the corner, collapsed, shaking, trying to breathe through the agony. And then came the banging at the top of the stairs. Roy. Davina's voice, sharp with worry. Footsteps flying down the stairs. Roy, where are you, oh my God? She found me curled in the corner, halfway between human and something that could chew her arm off in seconds. My jaw elongated, fangs fully extended, and my eyes, I could feel them glowing gold even with them squeezed shut. Don't, I rasped. Get out. Not safe. Shut up. She knelt beside me, hands moving in patterns I knew were spell work. Warmth flooded through my skull, pain-dampening magic. Not perfect, but enough to take the edge off. Can't, another crack. Shoulder blades shifting. Muscles reforming. Can't control it. Then don't try. Her hands pressed against my temples. Your body knows what to do. Easy for her to say. She didn't have a wolf clawing its way out of her chest. I know, she said, voice steady. But I'm right here. You're not doing this alone. The wolf didn't care. It wanted out. Hunt. Kill. Territory. All of it. I let it. Transformation accelerated. Spine curved, forcing me onto all fours. Face pushed forward into a muzzle. Fur erupted, black, thick, midnight dark. My clothes shredded. My body was no longer mine. Pain peaked. White-hot, everything else forgotten kind of pain. Then silence. I stood on all fours, panting. The world had gone from blurry to razor-sharp. Every scent is distinct. Davina's fierce wet. The concrete's mineral tang. Old blood from the bags upstairs. I could see her heartbeat. Prey? No. Ally. The wolf didn't care. It only knew she was small, breakable, and there. I stepped. She backed, hands raised but spellless. Roy? You in there? Another step. Predator instincts are screaming. Hunt. Kill. Feed. Deep down though, buried under instinct, was me. The part that remembered, Davina helped you. She trusts you. Don't you fucking dare. I stopped. Saturday. Awkwardly, the wolf's body does not obey the human brain. Her eyes went wide. Holy shit. You're still conscious. I couldn't respond. Vocal cords? Gone. Wolf brain? Not wired for small talk. I tilted my head. Yes. I'm here. I won't eat you. She laughed. High-pitched, nervous. Good boy? The absurdity broke through the predator haze. Me, ancient vampire, proto-original, source of every bloodline, reduced to good boy by a teenage witch. I wanted to laugh. Couldn't. Head hit the floor instead. She cautiously touched the top of my head, scratching between my ears like I was a giant, furry golden retriever. Grounding. Human touch that didn't hurt. You're huge, she whispered. Like abnormally huge. Regular wolves aren't this big. I wanted to say I'm not a regular wolf, but sat there, silent, letting her pet me. We stayed like that for 10 minutes. Her hand in my fur. Wolf aggression fading, manageable. Not gone, but quiet enough to breathe. The shift began reversing. Bones realigned. Fur receded. Less painful, but still ugh. Naked and sweaty, gasping like a dying fish. She had the decency to turn around. A blanket landed on me. So that's new, she said. New. Uncontrollable. Potentially lethal. Yep. That sums it up. You didn't hurt me. I wanted to. But you didn't. She pulled her knees up, giving me the adult teacher. I'm proud of you, look. That's what counts. Barely counts. Still counts. I rubbed my face. Everything hurt. How do you feel? Like I got hit by a truck, dragged 10 miles, then hit by another truck. She tilted her head. Is that normal? How would I know? I rubbed my jaw. You're the only hybrid I've ever met. Well, except Klaus. But we aren't sharing the same fun experiences. Klaus. The reminder hit like cold water. He was here. In the city. And he'd triggered this mess. I'm guessing he's investigating, I said quietly. How do you? I can feel him. Bloodline connection. Curious. Paranoid. Trying to figure out what's happening in his city. Marcel's protecting you? Trying. But Klaus sent Rebecca to check. Great timing. You need to get stronger. Fast. Working on it. She stood, brushing dust off her jeans. I should go. Marcel will notice I left the church. Davina. She paused at the stairs. Thank you. For helping. For staying. You didn't have to do that. She shrugged, trying for casual. You helped me first. We're even. She left. I wrapped myself in the blanket and collapsed against the wall. The wolf was part of me now. Whether I wanted it or not. Klaus, the son of my torturers, the hybrid whose curse-breaking had given me this, was actively looking for me. The irony? Delicious. I laughed. Broken, half-mad, echoing in the empty basement. Soon I'd be strong enough to face them. Just had to survive the next round of claws, fangs, and moral catastrophes. Klaus's POV. Marcel's compound. Klaus Mikaelson did not have patience. He stood in Marcel's courtyard, drink in hand, watching his protege run the city like a human metronome. Vampires came and went, reporting territorial disputes, patrolling, and gossiping. But something was off. Marcel was hiding something. Klaus could see it in the deflections, the half-answers, the way Marcel's inner circle stayed just a little too close. Marcellus, Klaus said, cutting through a conversation between Marcel and Thierry. Tell me about this mysterious vampire who's been protecting witches. Marcel didn't flinch. Just a drifter. Old. Powerful. Keeps to himself. Nothing to worry about. And yet you haven't run him out of your city. Curious. He's not causing problems. Not yet. Klaus smiled. Old vampires don't just show up in New Orleans for jazz and beignets. They have reasons. Agendas. So do you. Touché. But he's not family. He's not part of my business. How do you know? Because he told me. And I believe him. Klaus rolled the name around in his mind, Roy. No reference in the old family histories. Either a master of hiding or not as old as claimed. I want to meet him. No. That wasn't a request. And that wasn't me asking permission. He's not a threat. Leave him alone. Interesting. Marcel was protecting Roy. Why? Loyalty? Debt? Fear? Fine, Klaus said. For now. He spotted Rebecca on the balcony. Sister, I have a task for you. She turned, suspicious. Task? Find him. Marcel is protecting him. He's either an ally or a threat. We need intel. Why me? Because you're charming, subtle, and less likely to start a war over etiquette. And what do I get? My gratitude. Not enough. A new dress. Expensive. Your choice. 2 dresses. Deal. She pushed off the railing. If he kills me, I haunt you. You already do. Centuries and counting. She disappeared. Klaus watched Marcel. Wary. Protective. What are you hiding, Marcellus? Klaus would find out. He always did. I was practicing control when he arrived. 5 days since my first full-blown wolf meltdown. My hybrid abilities had stabilized at maybe 15%. Enough to shift without my brain melting into a puddle, not enough to be useful in a fight. I'd spent the last 2 days alternating between painful self-experiments and muttering to myself like a very bad mad scientist. Progress. Slow. Excruciating. I was on the main warehouse floor, shirtless because apparently my shirts didn't survive the hybrid experimentation, eyes flickering between human and gold, when I sensed him, not Klaus. Different. Calm. Controlled. Predictable in a terrifyingly dangerous way. Elijah. My chest tightened. Of all the originals, Elijah had been my favorite. The noble monster. The one who somehow maintained dignity despite 1,000 years of murder, betrayal, and family drama. My favorite character in the original TV series of my previous life, and now he was here. In my warehouse. Real. Smelling like the most expensive cologne I'd ever been tempted to steal. I grabbed a shirt and threw it on, praying it covered my shame and sweat. By the time I reached the door, he was already there. Hands clasped behind his back, the afternoon sun glinted off what had to be $100-inch haircut. The kind of posture that screams I could kill you without messing up my suit, and I'd make it look effortless. He knocked. Polite. Civilized. And yet I knew if he wanted, I'd have a new hole in my door and probably my shoulder as a souvenir. "I believe we should speak," he said, that perfectly British accented voice I'd heard 100 times on screen. I opened the door. We stared. Long, awkward, mutual assessment-style staring. His eyes were calculating, sharp. Probably cataloging my threat level, my power, whether I'd thrown away the shirt entirely, and my intentions. I was internally panicking, externally trying to look like someone who had not just spent 5 days transforming into a wolf in the basement. "Elijah Mikaelson," I said, trying to sound calm. "This is earlier than I'd hoped." He raised one eyebrow. "One. Iconic. You know me. Interesting. Everyone knows you. Kind of famous. Among the supernatural community, perhaps. But you say it with familiarity. Have we met?" "No," I admitted, trying not to sound like a fanboy. "But I know your family. Your history. Enough to recognize you." He tilted his head. "That's perfect, I'm judging you, but I'm still charming, tilt. Then you have an advantage. Because I know nothing about you, save that you're old, powerful, and have been protecting a young witch from her coven. And that you can manipulate blood in ways I've never seen." Ah, Sophie or Marcel had talked. Great. Just great. "Do you want to come in, or should we have this awkward conversation on the doorstep?" "Inside would be preferable," he said, stepping in with that supernatural grace that makes centuries-old vampires look like Olympic gymnasts. His eyes swept the warehouse. My life choices. My aesthetic. The laptop on a crate, the questionable stack of furniture. Spartan accommodations, he noted. "I'm working with what I have," I said. Which led to the obvious question, why am I here, hiding in a warehouse, shirtless, trying to convince an original I'm not a lunatic? "Long story," I muttered. "I have time," he replied. I gestured to the crates I'd been using as chairs. He sat. Somehow, a wooden crate looked like the throne of an ancient king. I took the one opposite, keeping a sensible distance. "Before we start," I said, "I need to demonstrate something. With your permission." "Demonstrate what?" "My power. So you know what you're dealing with." His expression didn't change, but the tension in the room spiked. "I would prefer not to fight." "Not a fight. Just proof that I'm telling the truth." He considered. Nodded once. "Very well. Show me." I met his eyes and gently pushed. Compulsion rolled out like a slow, insistent tide. Originals aren't like normal vampires. Their minds resist. It's like trying to shove a boulder through wet cement. "Take one step back," I said quietly. And he did. One precise, deliberate step. Every movement is clean, calculated. But the horror on his face? Priceless. His mind stayed fully conscious while I pulled the strings. I released him. Immediately. "I can compel originals," I said. "You stay conscious because, mercy. Your parents?" "Not so much." His hand went to his chest. "My parents? Esther. Michael. They found me over 1,000 years ago. Befriended me. Then drained me to create the spell that made you and your siblings into originals. When they were done, they shoved a silver dagger through my heart and dropped me in the ocean." Silence. Absolute. Perfect, horrifying silence. "You're lying," he finally said. "You're the first originals. I predate you by a millennium. Esther needed immortality older than magic. She found me, used me, and left me to rot." He was pacing. Smooth, measured pacing. Hands running through his hair like a man trying to maintain composure while his brain short-circuits. "You could compel me to walk off a cliff," he said. "Yes. And yet you haven't." "No. Why not?" "Because your parents' sins aren't yours to carry. You were victims too, in a way." "And Davina?" "I helped her because I know what it's like to be someone's power source. As for me? I woke up a few months ago. Klaus breaking his curse weakened the dagger enough that I escaped. Now I'm figuring out how to not die every 5 minutes." He exhaled, leaned back. The gears were turning. Calculating. Threats, opportunities, politics. I didn't care. I just hoped I sounded convincing. "Roy Stark," he said finally. You're truly older than us? By 1,000 years, give or take. Prove it. I opened a cut in my hand. Blood rose, shaped itself into a small, razor-sharp blade, suspended midair. Hemokinesis, I said. Control over blood. Mine, yours, any vampire tracing back to me through Esther's spell. The blade dissolved. Dripped onto the floor. Elijah stared. Wide-eyed. Composure cracked. Extraordinary, terrifying, he said finally. Welcome to my life, I muttered. We talked for hours. Esther. Michael. Coffins. Millennium underwater. Escape. Klaus triggered hybrid. Davina. Everything. By sunset he finally sat back, hands folded, trying to reclaim some semblance of the diplomatic mask. You can't tell Klaus yet, I warned. Why not? Because he'll try to kill me or use me. I'm not strong enough for either. He paused. You're asking me to lie to my brother? Yes. And to survive. He considered. Temporary. Eventually my siblings will need to know. Agreed. He left. Suit perfect, mask in place. But I could see the cracks. I'd broken something. Shattered his understanding of his family's origin. And he'd need time to rebuild. I stood alone in the warehouse, surrounded by crates and dust and regret. I'd met Elijah. The noble monster. My favorite original. And he'd listened. For now. But Klaus? He was still out there. Investigating. Smelling my trail. Waiting. I just had to survive long enough to be ready. Chapter 11, The Story Told, Part 1. The warehouse felt smaller with Elijah in it. He sat across from me on a wooden crate, hands folded neatly in his lap, posture too perfect for something that probably gave him splinters. Everything about him was controlled, the straight back, the smooth tie, even the way he breathed. Slow. Measured. Except his eyes. They kept flicking back to my hands like he expected them to move on their own again. I couldn't really blame him. Watching someone else control your body would mess anyone up. You mentioned another world, he said after a moment. His voice was steady, but it took effort. Explain. I swallowed. My mouth felt dry. I died, I said. Saying it out loud never got easier. I was 19. Walking home from a party. One second I was there, the next. I wasn't. He didn't interrupt. Just watched me carefully. There was this darkness. Like floating with no up or down. And a voice. It offered me a wish. I rubbed my palms together, trying to ground myself. I panicked. I didn't want to disappear. So I wished for immortality. Power. Something big enough that nothing could touch me again. His brow creased slightly. And it worked. I gave a short, humorless laugh. Yeah. A little too well. I told him about waking up in a different body, in a world that felt like it belonged in a history book. About being alone and terrified and pretending I understood what was happening when I absolutely didn't. Esther and Michael found me not long after, I said quietly. My fingers curled against my leg. I hadn't realized I was gripping myself until it started to hurt. At first they were kind. Curious. Esther kept asking questions. Said she wanted to protect her family. Elijah's jaw tightened. And you believed her? I wanted to, I admitted. I didn't have anyone else. The words sat heavy between us. When the chains came out, I continued, voice lower now, that's when I understood what trusting the wrong people costs. He leaned forward slightly. Not pushing. Just listening. They took what they needed from me over and over. Esther called it research. Michael didn't bother pretending it was anything noble. I paused, breath catching for just a second before I forced it steady again. 5 years of that. Elijah exhaled slowly through his nose, like he was trying to keep himself anchored. After they got what they wanted, I said, they locked me away. I couldn't move. Couldn't sleep. Couldn't escape my own head. I didn't describe the rest. I didn't have to. My voice must have carried enough of it on its own. Elijah stood and turned toward the window, shoulders tense. He didn't speak right away. No one should survive that, he said quietly. I shrugged, though it felt stiff. Guess I'm stubborn. It wasn't a joke. But it wasn't a breakdown either. Just the truth. Chapter 12, The Story Told, Part 2. Elijah's POV. Elijah Mikaelson had always trusted his control. 1,000 years of bloodshed, betrayals, and family disasters had taught him how to keep his face calm even when everything inside him was unraveling. He could negotiate with enemies, lie to allies, and bury grief so deeply even he sometimes forgot it was there. Tonight, that control was slipping. He stood alone in Lafayette Cemetery, the air cool and damp against his skin, his mother's grimoire open in his hands. The lantern beside him cast long shadows across the gravestones, the light trembling slightly in the breeze. Or maybe that was just his hands. He tightened his grip on the book, annoyed with himself. The tremor didn't stop. His eyes dragged across the familiar, elegant handwriting. Subject remains conscious despite blood loss approximating 70%. Regeneration observed within 48 hours when adequately fed. Pain response confirms full nervous system function. The screaming is inconvenient. Elijah swallowed hard. His throat felt tight like the words themselves were lodged there. He turned the page too quickly as if speed might soften what came next. It didn't. Michael suggests accelerating the drainage schedule. I have agreed. The subject's suffering is regrettable but necessary. The immortality spell requires a foundation older than magic itself. He is that foundation. His stomach twisted. The next pages were filled with diagrams, spell circles, runes, precise measurements, clinical notes written with calm detachment. Lines and symbols mapped out exactly how much a body could endure without breaking permanently. This wasn't rumor. This wasn't interpretation. This was documentation. This was his mother's handwriting. Beautiful. Careful. The same script she once used when signing letters to him centuries ago. The contrast made bile rise in his throat. Elijah closed the grimoire slowly, pressing his palm flat against the cover as if grounding himself. He slid it back into the hidden compartment in the mausoleum wall and sealed it again with trembling fingers. 3 other books sat beside it, equally damning, years of suffering reduced to neat observations and measured conclusions. Roy had told the truth. Every word. My God, Elijah whispered into the empty cemetery. Mother, what have you done? The sky was lightening when he finally left. Dawn painted the horizon in muted gray and pale gold, but the beauty barely registered. His thoughts raced, colliding and unraveling at once. Their immortality. Their power. Their legend. All of it had been built on someone else's pain. Not an enemy. Not a rival. A frightened young man who had simply survived something impossible. Klaus found him an hour after sunrise in the courtyard of Marcel's compound. Elijah sat with a book in his hands, though he hadn't absorbed a single word. His thoughts were still tangled in ink and diagrams and his mother's handwriting. Brother, Klaus said casually, dropping into the chair across from him. Too casually. You've been difficult to track down lately. What exactly have you been so busy with? Elijah turned a page that meant nothing. Which politics? The Harvard—
Wait. Hold up. Stop for a sec. Look, if you've already made it this far into the video and you're still here, come on, subscribe, bro. All right, I see you rolling your eyes. I'm moving. I'll get out of the way now so you can get back to the good stuff. But seriously, stick around and finish listening. It's worth it.
Harvest ritual. Marcel's methods of keeping order. It's fascinating, really. Klaus leaned back, studying him. And this has nothing to do with the ancient vampire who's been protecting Davina? Elijah lifted his eyes slowly. Should it? Silence stretched between them. Klaus leaned forward slightly, his gaze sharp and probing. Don't insult me by pretending you're not hiding something. You've barely spoken to Rebecca. You disappear for hours. And when I ask questions, you deflect. Elijah met his stare evenly. The covens are unstable. Agnes is positioning herself for something ugly. If we don't intervene, the city could spiral. Klaus searched his face for a crack. A twitch. A hesitation. There was none. 1,000 years of hiding inconvenient truths had finally proven useful. Fine, Klaus said at last, though suspicion lingered in his eyes. But if you're protecting me from something unpleasant, don't bother. I can handle reality. Not this one, Elijah thought. This would destroy you. Klaus stood, then paused. By the way, a werewolf named Haley Marshall arrived this morning. Looking into her family history. I thought you might want to speak with her. A convenient distraction. whether intentional or not. Of course, Elijah said smoothly. Klaus left. Elijah released a slow breath he hadn't realized he was holding. That bought him time. Not much, but time nonetheless. Klaus's paranoia worked both ways. It made him suspicious of everything, but it also made him easy to redirect if given something new to obsess over. As long as Elijah fed him partial truths, which unrest, political maneuvering, Marcel's schemes, Klaus might stay occupied. Might. Elijah returned to the warehouse that evening. Roy was upstairs in the office space, laptop open, empty blood bags stacked nearby. He looked up immediately when Elijah entered, posture alert but carefully guarded. Find what you needed? Roy asked. Elijah climbed the stairs slowly, choosing his words. Yes. I found the grimoires. My mother documented everything. Every experiment. Every observation. Roy's jaw tightened. She really kept notes. Meticulous ones, Elijah said quietly. Your healing speed. Your pain tolerance. Spell refinements. You were treated like a specimen, not a person. Roy looked away for a moment. Sounds about right. The understatement hit harder than anger would have. I'm sorry, Elijah said. Not formally. Not ceremoniously. Just honestly. Roy blinked. For what? For what my parents did to you. For what our existence cost you. Elijah extended his hand. You deserved better than that. You deserve acknowledgement. Justice. And if you'll accept it, my alliance. Roy studied the offered hand cautiously, then took it. His grip was steady, firm. Alliance, Roy said. Against your parents. Not your siblings. Understood. Roy exhaled quietly. Funny. I spent 1,000 years imagining revenge. Now that it's actually possible, I'm not sure what I want anymore. That uncertainty is a good sign, Elijah said gently. It means you still care who you become. Roy gave a short, humorless laugh. You sound like someone I'd trust with a drink. I'd welcome that. Elijah reached into his jacket and pulled out a blood bag. One more thing. A gesture of trust. Roy eyed it warily. That's not necessary. Perhaps not. But I'd like to offer it. After a brief hesitation, Roy accepted it, holding it carefully rather than opening it. Thank you. You're welcome. Elijah adjusted his cuffs. Klaus is growing suspicious. I've bought us a little time, but not much. How long? A week. Maybe 2. Roy nodded slowly. Then I need information. About Klaus. What makes him tick? What keeps him from attacking everything that threatens him? Elijah considered the weight of that request. Then he answered honestly. He fears abandonment more than death. Betrayal cuts deeper than any blade. If you approach him with hostility, he will respond with overwhelming force. But if you offer him something he wants, understanding, validation, he may hesitate. Roy processed that. And if he doesn't? Then prepare yourself. They stood in quiet understanding. I should go, Elijah said finally. Before Klaus starts wondering. Roy hesitated. Why are you helping me? Truly? Elijah met his eyes. Because what my parents did was wrong. And if I ignore that simply because it's inconvenient, then everything I claim to stand for is meaningless. He paused at the door. And because I don't want you to become what they tried to make you. The walk back was slow. Elijah let the city sounds steady his thoughts. He knew exactly how this would end. Klaus would eventually uncover the truth. There would be anger. Accusations. Possibly blood. But Elijah also knew he wouldn't change his choice. Roy deserved justice. Even if it cost Elijah everything. He lifted his gaze toward the darkening sky. I hope you understand someday, brother. Knowing Klaus, that understanding might take decades. Fortunately, they had time. Chapter 13, Building Bonds. The bottle of bourbon Elijah brought probably cost more than my stolen car. I could tell just by the label, some elegant French script, aged longer than most vampires I'd ever met, and by the way he carried it, careful and steady, like he was transporting something fragile instead of alcohol I didn't technically need. He set it on the crate between us. A peace offering, he said. And a reason to visit without raising Klaus's suspicions. You need an excuse to hang out with me? Klaus tracks patterns, Elijah replied. If I appear here too often without a clear motive, his paranoia will spike. But sharing rare bourbon with another immortal? That's harmless enough to go unnoticed. Smart. It's a survival skill. He pulled 2 crystal glasses from his jacket pocket, because of course he carried crystal glasses around, and poured us each a modest amount. To new alliances. I clinked my glass against his and took a sip. The burn hit hard and warm, smooth and rich all at once. The kind of drink that made you pause halfway through swallowing just to appreciate it. Wow, I said. That's actually incredible. 1926, Elijah said proudly. Prohibition era. I've been saving it for something meaningful. Meeting the guy your parents tortured counts as meaningful? He didn't even hesitate. Meeting someone I can actually talk to counts. I snorted and took another sip. Fair enough. So what do you want to talk about? He leaned back against the crate, swirling the bourbon in his glass. Ethics. I groaned internally. Of course. The ethics of immortal violence, he continued. What separates a predator from a monster? Oh. We were doing that conversation. Control, I said after a moment. Choosing when to act instead of just acting because you can. Elijah nodded. Discipline. Rules. Honor. Or, I countered, a pretty way to justify what we do. Calling it honor doesn't make the bodies disappear. It just makes the murder sound fancier. His eyes sharpened slightly. You don't believe there's such a thing as honorable violence? I think it's a story we tell ourselves so we can sleep at night, I said. Predator is still predator, even in a tailored suit. That's cynical. Realistic. So you believe intent doesn't matter? I think it matters emotionally, I said. But the outcome stays the same. Someone dies. We can rationalize it however we want, but it doesn't change what we are. And yet you protect Davina. Sure, I said. I just pick different targets. Elijah's mouth twitched. Semantics. Philosophy is just organized arguing over semantics. That earned a quiet laugh. We talked for over an hour, Kant, Nietzsche, morality in a world where consequences stretched across centuries. He challenged me, pushed back when I oversimplified, made me defend ideas I hadn't fully unpacked yet. It felt good. Normal even. Like being a person again instead of a weapon waiting to go off. Then the warehouse door slammed open. Are you two having a feelings moment? Davina stood in the doorway, backpack slung over one shoulder, eyes bright with amusement. Because I can come back later if the bromance needs privacy. Elijah actually choked on his drink. I didn't even try to suppress my laugh. Miss Claire, Elijah said once he recovered, clearing his throat. Always a pleasure. Uh-huh. She eyed the bottle. Is that the expensive stuff? Yes. And you're drinking it here? Good bourbon transcends location, Elijah replied calmly. She turned to me. He's weird. He's ancient. Weird comes free with the immortality package. You're older than I am, Elijah pointed out. Yeah, I said. And also weird. Davina dropped onto the floor between our crates and dumped her bag. Since you're both here, maybe Elijah can help with magic stuff. Roy's being stubborn about ley lines. I'm not stubborn, I protested. I just don't see how they matter if I can't cast yet. Because theory matters, she shot back. You don't just wing magic. For the next couple of hours, she taught while Elijah and I listened. Ley lines. Energy flow. Ancestral magic. Power structures. I soaked it up greedily, sketching diagrams, asking questions, connecting dots faster than I probably should have. You're scary fast, Davina said, peering over my shoulder. You're already seeing patterns I didn't explain yet. Occupational hazard of having too much time to think. That's not normal memorization, she said. That's something else. Elijah glanced at my notes. Useful, not dangerous, as long as you don't blow up the city. Comforting, I muttered. As the sky darkened, Davina packed up. I should head back before Marcel freaks out. Be careful, I said. She paused at the door. Thanks. For not being creepy about the whole ancient vampire thing. Low bar, but I try. She waved and disappeared. Elijah finished the last of his bourbon and set the glass down carefully. She's impressive. Yeah. You care about her. Of course I do. He studied me for a moment. Just be careful. Attachment is dangerous. Speaking from experience? Always. He stood, straightening his jacket. Thank you for tonight. It's been a long time since I've had a conversation like this. Bring more bourbon next time and I'll keep arguing with you. He smiled, not the polished diplomat version but something real, and left. I stared at the empty glasses for a long moment. Somewhere along the way I'd started trusting Elijah Mikaelson. That probably should have scared me more than it did. Marcel found me 3 nights later. I was on the warehouse roof, practicing partial shifts, gold eyes, extended fangs, controlled claws. Getting better. Not perfect, but progress. Impressive, Marcel said, climbing through the open window. Most hybrids struggle with that for years. Fast learner. He leaned on the railing, looking out over the city. We need to talk. Oh. About Elijah, he said. And what you're building with the Mikaelsons. I'm not building anything, I said carefully. We're allies. That's it. You see him constantly. You're getting involved in their world. I'm not trying to destabilize your city. Intent doesn't matter, Marcel said flatly. The Mikaelsons bring chaos wherever they go. He wasn't wrong. My priorities are simple, I said. Protect Davina. Deal with the people who tortured me. That's it. And when Klaus gets in your way? Then that's between me and Klaus. Marcel studied me for a long moment. Just don't burn my city down in the process. He left. I stayed on the roof, watching the lights flicker below. Marcel was right to worry. The Mikaelsons were disasters in designer clothing. And somehow I was walking straight into their orbit. But I was done being alone. I'd take the risk. Chapter 14, The Klaus Problem. I was practicing blood manipulation when I felt him. 2 weeks of non-stop training had pushed my control to maybe 30% on a good day. I could shape weapons now, rough, unstable things that looked more threatening than they actually were. A blade formed from a shallow cut on my palm hovered between my hands, dark and glossy, hardened almost to steel. It would hold for a few minutes before breaking down and turning back into liquid. Progress. Slow, frustrating progress. The blade wavered slightly as something slammed into my awareness. Klaus. His presence hit like a pressure wave, heavier than Elijah's, sharper, louder somehow. Chaotic energy, coiled aggression, the unmistakable pull of another hybrid brushing against my senses. Close. Getting closer. Damn it. I let the blade dissolve, the blood splashing back onto the concrete. I wiped my palm quickly and yanked a shirt from a nearby crate, pulling it over my head just as footsteps echoed on the stairs. Elijah appeared first. His expression was tight, apologetic, the look of someone walking into a situation they knew was about to explode. Then Klaus stepped into view behind him. He looked exactly like he did on screen. Exactly. Messy blonde curls, sharp features, confident posture that carried barely restrained violence under the surface. His gaze swept the warehouse in seconds, cataloging everything, the blood on the floor, my stance, the way my shoulders squared without me thinking about it. The power rolling off him was intense enough to feel like static against my skin. Well, Klaus said lightly, voice smooth and dangerous all at once. So this is what you've been hiding, brother. His eyes locked onto me. An ancient vampire making friends in my city. How wonderfully suspicious. I stood slowly, keeping my movements controlled. My instincts were screaming, fight, flee, do something, even though I didn't need adrenaline anymore for anything useful. This was Klaus Mikaelson. Former favorite character. Current walking catastrophe. Klaus, I said. Neutral had been the goal. What came out was cautious at best. He smiled faintly. You already know my name. How charming. And you are? Roy Stark. Roy Stark, he repeated, tasting it. He started circling me, slow and deliberate. Never heard of you. And I know every ancient vampire worth knowing. Which means either you're very good at hiding or you're lying. I'm good at hiding. Clearly. He stopped directly in front of me, far too close. I could see the gold flecks in his eyes, the same shade mine turned when the wolf side surfaced. Elijah claims you're older than us. That you were used. By our parents. His voice hardened on the last word. I find that story convenient. Believe what you want. Oh, I intend to. His hand shot out. Too fast to dodge. His fingers closed around my throat. Instinct took over. Compulsion surged through me, snapping into him through the bloodline connection like a live wire. Tell me your real name. Klaus's mouth opened against his will. Niklaus. The realization hit him instantly. His eyes widened in horror as his body obeyed despite his mind fighting it. His grip loosened, his arm dropping uselessly at his side. I released him immediately. He staggered back, breathing hard, fury and shock colliding across his face. What the hell was that? Proof, I said, heart still hammering even though I didn't need it to. I can compel originals. You stay aware. You just can't stop yourself. And you were about to crush my windpipe. Klaus surged forward again, and Elijah caught his arm. Brother. Please. He controlled me. And released you immediately, Elijah said evenly. If he wanted you harmed, you wouldn't be standing. Roy, explain. Quickly. I inhaled slowly. Your parents imprisoned me. They used my blood to build the immortality spell that made you into originals. When you broke your hybrid curse, it triggered mine, because my blood is part of the foundation of what you are. Klaus stared at me, then at Elijah. You actually believe this? I verified it myself, Elijah said quietly. Mother documented everything. That's not possible. Watch. I let the shift roll through my eyes. Gold flooded my vision, the wolf's presence rising just beneath my skin. My canines lengthened slightly, not full fangs but close enough to make the point. Klaus froze. Recognition flickered across his face, followed by something like awe. You're like me, he breathed. Not by choice, I said, easing the shift back down. When you broke your curse, it activated mine. I've been learning how to control it since. But Mother said I was unique. She lied. I shrugged lightly. Your curse was punishment. Mine was dormant potential. She just didn't understand what she was using. Klaus went very still. That was the dangerous kind of quiet. So what do you want? He asked finally. To recover. Learn control. And eventually make your parents pay. Mother's already dead. Good. And Michael? I'm open to creative suggestions. Klaus barked out a sharp laugh. I like you. I probably shouldn't, but I do. He turned on Elijah. You could have warned me. And you could have listened, Elijah replied calmly. Klaus paced, working through the implications. This isn't over, he said. We'll talk properly. But not today. He turned toward the stairs. Elijah. Now. They left, voices already rising into argument. Silence settled over the warehouse. I sank onto the nearest crate, the adrenaline crash finally catching up with me. That was Klaus. Not a character. Not fiction. A real, volatile, brilliant disaster of a person, and he hadn't killed me. My hands were shaking. I folded them together and forced them still. Everything had just gotten more complicated. Klaus knew I existed. He knew I could control him. He knew we shared something dangerous and rare. That made me either valuable or expendable. Possibly both. I started laughing before I could stop myself. It came out shaky, a little hysterical. The absurdity hit all at once, surviving 1,000 years of torture only to nearly lose my nerve meeting someone I used to watch on television. I wiped my face and exhaled. Okay. Elijah was still my ally. Davina was teaching me. Marcel was cautious but not hostile. Klaus hadn't murdered me on sight. That counted as a win. I just had to keep everyone from killing each other long enough to figure out what came next. Easy. Totally not doomed. Yeah, probably doomed. But at least it wasn't boring. Chapter 15, Haley's Pregnancy Discovered. The world tilted sideways. I was in the warehouse basement, working on my blood manipulation, trying to force the blade to hold its shape for 10 minutes instead of 5, when something slammed into me from the inside. It wasn't physical. It was deeper than that. Like someone had reached through the bloodline connection and yanked every nerve in my body at once. My balance vanished. I dropped to one knee, the blade collapsing into a dark splash across the concrete. I sucked in a sharp breath, steadying myself with one hand on the floor. What the hell was that? The sensation hit again, not painful exactly, but massive and wrong in a way that made every hybrid instinct in me flare. Something unnatural was happening. Something big enough that I could feel it through every vampire tied to the bloodline. Footsteps rushed down the stairs. Roy. Davina's voice cut through the fog. What's going on? I don't know. My hands were trembling. I pressed them flat against the concrete, trying to anchor myself. Something just surged through the connection. I focused, following the strange pull like a thread tugging at my chest. The compound, I murmured. It's coming from Klaus. Davina blinked. Klaus is doing magic now? No. Not him. Around him. Near him. The sensation settled into something steadier, layered, overlapping, alive in a way that made my skin prickle. My breath caught. Oh. Oh no. What? I lifted my head slowly. There's going to be a Tribrid. A natural-born one. Her eyes widened. That's impossible. Vampires can't. Hybrids can, I said quietly. Apparently. The realization kept unfolding in my chest, piece by piece. Klaus got someone pregnant. And that baby, I pressed a hand against my sternum. The bloodline connection hummed faintly in response. When she's born, it's going to finish my transformation. Davina stared at me. She? I nodded. Yeah. I can feel it. Female. And strong. Stronger than anything that should exist. She sank onto the stair, trying to wrap her head around it. After a moment, she looked up at me. So you're going to protect her? I blinked. How did you? Because that's what you do, she said simply. You protect people who don't have anyone else yet. Smart kid. Yeah, I admitted. I am. Not because of the power part, though I won't pretend that doesn't matter. But that baby didn't ask to be born into this mess. Every supernatural group in the city is going to see her as either a threat or a prize. Davina smiled faintly. You're a good person, Roy. I snorted quietly. Or I'm just tired of watching innocent people get crushed by everyone else's agendas. I grabbed a clean shirt and pulled it on. Either way, she's my top priority now. Elijah arrived about an hour later. I'd gone up to the roof, watching the compound from a distance, letting the city noise keep my thoughts from spiraling. I felt him before I saw him. He climbed through the window, suit still somehow perfect despite the climb. You felt it, he said. Hard to miss, I replied. Sophie reveal the pregnancy? He nodded. Haley Marshall. A werewolf. The covens are already calling the child an abomination. Of course they are. Elijah turned toward me. I'm asking for your help. Officially. She'll be hunted the moment word spreads. Klaus and I can't be everywhere at once. You want me invisible, I said. Quiet. Dealing with problems before they ever get close. Yes. I didn't hesitate. I'm in. Not for Klaus, I'm still figuring out how I feel about him, but that child's innocent. And selfishly, her survival matters to me too. A flicker of relief crossed Elijah's face. Thank you. He's scared, I said. Elijah let out a slow breath. Terrified. Of becoming Michael. Of failing her. Of losing her. We stood together in silence for a moment, the compound glowing softly in the distance. What's Haley like? I asked. Strong. Stubborn. Searching for where she belongs. A faint smile touched his mouth. Klaus doesn't quite know what to do with that. He never does. Elijah turned back toward the window. When your transformation finishes, will you be safe? I shrugged. No idea. Could be rough. Could be fine. I'll survive either way. If you need help, I'll ask. He nodded and left. Becoming her shadow meant disappearing. Klaus couldn't know I was watching, his paranoia would twist it into something dangerous. The witches couldn't know either, they'd only escalate. I had to move quietly. Correct problems before they became problems. The first attempt came 2 nights later. 3 witches moving toward the compound just after midnight, fueled by a locator spell tied to vampire blood. I intercepted them before they reached the block. A little compulsion. A little suggestion. They turned around and went home, confused and harmless. The second attempt was louder, a werewolf group arguing politics I barely cared about. I nudged their information in the wrong direction and let them chase ghosts instead of Haley. The third threat never made it off the ground. Agnes. I found her alone, preparing something she shouldn't have been preparing. I made my presence known before she finished a word. We had a short, very direct conversation. She understood. By morning, every witch in her circle knew Haley Marshall was untouchable. Davina found me later that night, wiping dried blood from my hands in the warehouse sink. Agnes, she said quietly. I glanced at her. Word travels fast. You scared half the coven, she said. Not accusing. Just stating. You can't keep poking people like that. Maybe not, I said. But they'll think twice now. She stepped closer, handed me a towel. Why do you really care about this baby? I hesitated. When I was trapped, I said slowly, I kept thinking about what I'd do if I ever got out. Revenge, yeah. But mostly, I didn't want anyone else to go through that kind of helplessness. I met her eyes. That baby hasn't even been born and people already want to control her or destroy her. Davina nodded softly. Like you. Like me. Like you. Her expression softened. You're not as scary as you pretend to be. Don't ruin my reputation. She smiled and left after making me promise again to be careful. I stayed behind, staring at my hands. Clean now. Still carrying the memory of tension and adrenaline. Worth it. Absolutely worth it. Through the bloodline connection, I could already feel her, faint, distant, growing stronger every day. Another Tribrid. The only being in the world who might someday understand exactly what I was. Hope Mikaelson. I exhaled slowly. Yeah, I murmured to the empty room. I've got you. Whatever it took. Chapter 16. The Pranking War Begins. I watched from across the street as Klaus found it. The shout that followed was loud enough to echo down the block. Something crashed. Something else ripped. Klaus's voice carried through the open windows of the compound, snapping through at least 3 languages I definitely didn't speak. A second later Elijah appeared in the doorway, hands raised in what was probably a calming gesture, and immediately had a paintbrush thrown in his direction. I bit my fist to keep from laughing out loud. Mission absolutely accomplished. I'd used a compelled human to slip inside at dawn, right after Klaus finally went to bed and before the rest of the city woke up, and leave the note in his locked studio. The part that would drive him crazy wasn't the message. It was the fact that someone had gotten in at all. Klaus hated unanswered questions. Hated not knowing how something happened, who did it, or how to stop it from happening again. The idea that someone could stroll into his most private space whenever they felt like it was going to live rent-free in his head for weeks. I walked away grinning like an idiot. It was childish. Petty. Completely unnecessary. It was also incredibly satisfying. Klaus struck back 3 days later. I was moving through the warehouse district with my hood up when my instincts flared. 10 vampires. Spread out. Waiting. Really? That's the plan? I stopped walking and reached out through the bloodline connection. Their blood hummed like live wires, easy to grab, easy to pull. Gentlemen, I called casually. You can come out now. They stepped into view, trying to look intimidating. On anyone else, maybe it would have worked. On me, they just looked like nervous kids playing tough. Klaus sent you, I said. The one in front nodded. He looked like he'd been turned sometime in the late 90s. Still had that permanently confused baby vampire energy. He wants you brought in. Preferably without anyone getting hurt. And if I decline? Then, less preferably. I smiled. Okay. New plan. Their eyes glazed over as compulsion slid into place. All of you are going to walk to Marcel's compound. Line up in the courtyard. And then you're going to perform the Macarena. In sync. For 20 minutes. Confusion hit first. Then horror. They turned and marched off like very obedient zombies. I followed from a rooftop because I absolutely had to see this with my own eyes. They didn't disappoint. 10 very serious vampires stood in neat rows in the middle of Marcel's courtyard and began enthusiastically doing the Macarena. Perfect timing. Perfect coordination. Marcel's people gathered fast. Phones came out. Laughing. Pointing. Marcel himself appeared a moment later, already dialing his phone, probably screaming at Klaus. I left before anyone noticed me, laughing so hard my ribs actually hurt. The war escalated quickly. Klaus compelled humans to follow me around the city. I compelled them to breakdance whenever they spotted Klaus. He hired a witch to trace me. I convinced her I lived in the sewer system. He spent hours searching damp tunnels for absolutely nothing. He installed security cameras across half the district. I arranged for every recording of me to mysteriously become videos of puppies instead. In a fit of creative rage, Klaus compelled 50 humans to stand outside my warehouse at 3 in the morning chanting, "Roy is paranoid." I didn't need sleep anyway, so the next morning I sent them to the compound to serenade him with "Never Gonna Give You Up." Fair is fair. Rebecca found me a week into the chaos. I was sitting at a cafe pretending to drink coffee when she dropped into the chair across from me like we were already friends. "You," she announced, pointing at me, "are my new favorite person." I blinked. That was fast. "I've watched Nick spiral into dramatic meltdowns for 1,000 years, she said brightly. "You've somehow made it entertaining." She leaned forward, eyes sparkling. "Please tell me you're not done." "Not even close." "Excellent. I want in." I raised a brow. "You want to prank your own brother?" She scoffed. "Darling, I've been pranking him since the Middle Ages. But never with someone who can turn his minions into synchronized dancers." Her grin widened. "I know when he sleeps, where he hides his favorite paintings, and which of his vampires actually tattle." I couldn't help smiling. "You're a terrible sister." "Oh, absolutely." She laughed, real bright laughter, and it hit me how long it must have been since she'd done that. "We're going to have so much fun," she said. "Tell me, could you compel him to make breakfast?" "I could," I admitted. "But he'd be conscious the whole time. That might cross the line." She hummed thoughtfully. "We'll save that for emergencies." Then she stood. "Tuesday, 2 a.m. He'll be painting. The studio doors will be mysteriously unlocked." And just like that, she was gone. I stared at my cooling coffee, trying to process the fact that I'd somehow recruited Rebecca Mikaelson into a prank conspiracy against her own brother. This was supposed to be my enemy, not someone I was playing stupid games with. But the laughter felt good. Better than stewing in anger or planning revenge I wasn't ready for yet. Tuesday night delivered beautifully. Another note. Another explosion of outrage. Another very satisfied walk home. Marcel cornered me the next day. "Stop," he said flatly. "Stop being charming? Stop making Klaus lose his mind," he snapped. "He's tearing up my city looking for you." I sighed. "He started it. And you're making it worse. Be the adult." "I'm literally ancient." "Then act like it." "Okay. Fair. I'll dial it back," I promised. No more humiliating his people. Just notes. Marcel looked relieved and deeply tired. "Thank you." I kept my word. 1 prank a week. Small. Contained. Mostly harmless. And weirdly, Klaus started looking almost amused sometimes. Just for a split second. Like part of him secretly enjoyed the chaos. Maybe Rebecca was right. Maybe this was good for him. Or maybe I was just getting attached to people I should have kept at arm's length. Either way, the prank war became tradition. And I wasn't stopping until Klaus learned how to laugh at himself. That might take a century. Good thing I had time.
Hey there, novel lovers. I know it's not the usual thing, but if you enjoy what you're hearing, please like and subscribe. Okay, shameless plug over. Now, let's get back to the listening.
Chapter 17, The First Proto-Vampire, Part 1. I'd been watching Marcus Cole for 2 weeks. Not stalking. Observing. There was a difference. Stalking was about obsession. This was about responsibility. If I was going to offer someone a chance at becoming something almost as powerful as an original, something that could very easily kill them, I needed to know exactly who they were first. Marcus was 40, but life had added a decade to his face. His hands were permanently rough, knuckles split and scarred from years of concrete dust and broken tools. His shoulders slumped even when he stood straight, like exhaustion had become part of his posture. The lines around his eyes weren't from laughter. They were from being tired in a way sleep couldn't fix. 3 jobs. 4 hours of sleep on a good night. And still he kept going. Every morning he packed lunches. Every night he double-checked homework. Every spare dollar went into a battered savings envelope hidden behind a cereal box in his kitchen. All of it for his nephew. Dylan was 8, skinny knees, crooked grin, missing 2 teeth. His parents had been killed by a drunk driver a little over a year ago. Marcus had taken him in without hesitation, even though he barely managed his own bills. Watching them together was grounding. Marcus wasn't soft. He wasn't gentle in a storybook way. But every decision he made revolved around keeping that kid safe, fed and smiling. He was drowning. Not dramatically. Not loudly. Just slowly, quietly, the way people really break. That mattered to me. I approached him on a Saturday night at a dive bar that smelled like old beer and fried grease. It was his only night off. He sat alone at a corner table with a single drink he clearly planned to stretch as long as possible. His phone was in his hand, thumb hovering over the screen, probably scrolling through pictures of Dylan. I slid into the chair across from him. "This seat's taken," he said automatically, not even looking up. "No, it isn't." I kept my voice calm. "Human. Marcus Cole. 40 years old. Construction during the day. Stocking shelves at night. Security on weekends. Raising your nephew since your sister died 13 months ago." His head snapped up. His body tightened like a cornered animal. His hand drifted toward his pocket. "How do you?" "Relax," I said gently, lifting my hands so he could see they were empty. "I'm not here to hurt you. I'm here to offer you something." "Yeah." His voice was wary. "Because this sounds like the start of a robbery." "More like the start of a very bad life decision," I admitted. "What if I told you I could give you the power to protect the people you love? Real power. The kind that makes sure nobody ever hurts Dylan again." His jaw tightened at the sound of his nephew's name. "You selling drugs?" "Worse." I met his eyes. "Immortality. Strength. Speed. The ability to survive things that would kill normal people." He stared at me like I'd grown a second head. "And there's a catch," I added. "The process could kill you. And if it doesn't, you'll never be human again." He snorted. "You're insane." "Probably." I slid a plain business card across the table. "Just a phone number. Nothing flashy. But I'm serious. Think about it. If you want to talk, call me. If not, forget I ever existed." I stood and left before he could argue or convince himself I was just another crazy person in a bar. The choice had to be his. He called 2 days later. His voice sounded rough. Like he hadn't slept much. "Is this Roy? From the bar?" "Yeah." "Was that offer real?" "Yes." A pause. Breathing on the other end. Nervous but steady. "What's the downside?" "There's about a 1 in 20 survival rate," I said honestly. "The transformation is brutal. Most people don't make it. The ones who do usually have something inside them that refuses to break. You've been through real loss. That gives you a better chance. But I won't lie, this will hurt. A lot." Silence stretched between us. "And if I survive?" "You'll be able to protect Dylan from anything." Another pause. "What are you?" "Meet me and I'll show you." I hesitated. "Marcus, if you die, Dylan loses the only family he has left. Don't take this lightly." His voice hardened. "If I don't take risks, I'm going to lose him anyway. I'm barely holding everything together. One accident, one bad week, and we're done. I'd rather die trying than slowly watch everything fall apart." There it was. Not desperation. Resolve. "Tomorrow night. 10 p.m. Come alone. I'll be there." The next day, I cleaned the basement and laid out blood bags in case he survived and needed to feed quickly. My hands kept moving even while my mind ran through every possible failure. I asked Davina and Elijah to be there. Davina for the magic. Elijah as a witness, because some lines shouldn't be crossed in secret. "You're certain?" Elijah asked, glancing around the warehouse like it offended him personally. "No," I admitted. "But he is." Davina arrived with her bag of grimoires and nerves written all over her face. "What if he dies?" "Then I carry that," I said quietly. "But I won't stop trying. I need people I can trust. That means choosing carefully and accepting the risk." Marcus arrived exactly at 10. He looked exhausted. Eyes bloodshot. Jaw tight. But his steps were steady. "I told Dylan I loved him," he said simply. "If I don't come back, my landlord will take him in." That hit harder than I expected. "This is your last chance to walk away," I said. He shook his head. "Do it." I explained the process one final time. "Drink the blood. Die. Hope your body accepts the change. The pain will be bad," I warned. He rolled up his sleeve anyway. "Dylan needs me." I bit my wrist. The blood welled up, thick, ancient, heavy with power. Marcus drank. He gagged once but didn't stop until I pulled him back. His skin went pale. "I feel." His body went limp. I caught him as his heart stopped. Davina dropped to her knees immediately, hands glowing faintly as she started working. "He's fighting it," she murmured. "He won't give up," I said, even though fear twisted in my chest. If he dies, Elijah began. If he dies, I said quietly, tell Dylan his uncle tried to become something more. Tell him he was brave. Silence fell as we waited. An hour passed. Then Marcus's body arched violently, a silent scream ripping through him as the blood began burning its way through his system. Davina sucked in a breath. It's starting. I knelt beside him, helpless, watching him suffer for the hope I'd handed him. Please survive. Because if he didn't, I wasn't sure I could forgive myself. Chapter 18, The First Proto-Vampire, Part 2. Marcus screamed. Not the kind of scream you fake in a nightmare. This was raw, tearing itself out of his chest, the sound of someone whose body didn't understand how to survive what was happening to it. His whole frame locked and arched, muscles straining as if something inside him was trying to reshape him from the inside out. I dropped to my knees and grabbed his shoulders, holding him steady so he wouldn't slam into the concrete or tear himself apart. Hey, stay with me, I said, even though I knew he probably couldn't hear a word. You've got a kid who needs you. Don't you dare quit on him now. His grip clenched around nothing, fingers digging into the floor like it might anchor him to reality. His breath came in sharp, broken gasps. Sweat soaked through his clothes in seconds. Davina knelt nearby, her hands glowing faintly as she pushed magic into her spell. Her voice trembled. Roy, it's not dulling the pain enough. He's feeling almost everything. Don't stop, I said immediately. Whatever you can give him helps. Elijah stood a few steps back, his face tight with controlled shock. Is this what you endured when your transformation completed? Close, I said through clenched teeth. But he's doing it all at once. Human to proto-vampire in a single leap. Marcus cried out again, his body jerking violently. It felt wrong to watch someone suffer this much and be powerless to stop it. Every instinct in me wanted to end it, to make the pain stop, but I forced myself to stay steady. He had chosen this. Minutes blurred into hours. At some point, the screaming faded into strained, ragged breathing. That scared me more than the noise ever had. I pressed 2 fingers to his neck. His pulse was faint, uneven, but it was still there. Come on, Marcus, I whispered. You're almost through. Then stillness. Too still. No breath. No pulse. The warehouse went painfully quiet. I checked again. Nothing. My chest tightened. Elijah opened his mouth. Roy, I don't think. Marcus's eyes snapped open. He sucked in a sharp breath like someone surfacing from deep water, confusion and shock written all over his face. His gaze darted wildly around the room, senses clearly overwhelming him. I didn't hesitate. I brought my wrist to his mouth. Drink. You need it. He reacted on instinct, gripping my arm with sudden, surprising strength and drinking deeply. It wasn't violent, just desperate, like his body knew exactly what it needed and refused to wait. After a moment, I gently pulled him back. Easy. You're okay. He leaned against the wall, breathing hard even though he didn't technically need to. His eyes were still glowing, wide with sensory overload. What am I? He asked hoarsely. Relief hit me so hard my knees almost gave out. You made it, I said, unable to stop the smile spreading across my face. You're a proto-vampire. He stared down at his hands, flexing them slowly like he didn't quite trust them yet. The concrete beneath his fingers cracked slightly. His eyes widened. I can hear everything. Smell everything. I can feel the room. Enhanced senses, I explained. It'll calm down once your body stabilizes. He stood, testing his balance. Every movement was smoother, more confident, like his body finally fit him properly. He walked to a nearby pillar and gently struck it. The surface fractured. He sucked in a breath. That's not normal. About 2/3 of an original strength, I said. You're fast, durable, and very hard to hurt. Sunlight still burns, but Davina's got you covered. His face shifted, power, awe, then something softer. Dylan, he said immediately. Is he safe? Yes, I said without hesitation. He's protected. You'll see him once you've learned control. His shoulders sagged with relief. You actually did it. You did it, I corrected. You survived. Why me? I studied him for a moment. Because you didn't break when life tried to crush you. This process doesn't reward comfort, it rewards resilience. He let out a shaky laugh. Guess losing everything finally paid off. Davina handed him a ring. Daylight protection. Put it on. He slipped it on carefully. Thank you. Try not to eat anyone, she added dryly. Please don't, I said. Marcel would not be amused. Marcus smiled faintly, tired, overwhelmed but alive. Elijah guided him toward the feeding area, leaving Davina and me alone. You did it, she said softly. Yeah, I replied. My voice sounded strange to my own ears. Heavy. You okay? I just changed someone's life forever, I said quietly. That's a lot. You gave him a choice, she said firmly. That matters. I stared at the cracked concrete and the lingering traces of blood. I hope it always does. She squeezed my arm. You're building something better than what made you. After she left, I stayed there in the quiet, watching the first hints of dawn creep through the windows. One person. One choice. One life rebuilt instead of destroyed. It wasn't an army. It was a beginning. And for the first time in a long time, it felt like the right one. Chapter 19, The Failed Turning. Marcus brought her to me 3 weeks after his transformation. Her name was Sarah Mitchell. She was 26 and worked as an emergency room nurse. She stood in the doorway of the warehouse like someone who had learned how to keep one foot pointed toward an exit at all times. Her posture was calm, controlled, the kind of calm that comes from surviving chaos, not avoiding it. Her wrists carried faint scars. Old ones. Healed but never forgotten. Marcus said you help people, she said quietly. People who've been through things. That depends on what you mean by help. He said you gave him power. That you made it so no one could ever hurt his family again. Her eyes didn't waver. I want that. I studied her carefully. The marks on her skin told part of the story, but her eyes told the rest, guarded, sharp, stubbornly alive. She wasn't fragile. She had already rebuilt herself once from something terrible. She was exactly the kind of person who might survive. But might wasn't a promise. Sit, I said, gesturing to a crate. We need to talk honestly. She sat without hesitation, hands folded neatly in her lap. I won't sugarcoat this, I told her. The survival rate is low. Most people don't make it. It's painful, unpredictable, and permanent. If you survive, you'll never be human again. If you don't, you die. She nodded slowly. I understand risk. You understand hospitals, I said gently. This isn't medicine. This is something your body may reject completely. I survived 3 years with someone who tried to erase me, she said calmly. I'm not afraid of pain. I'm afraid of being powerless. That hit harder than I expected. If you die, I said quietly, that responsibility is mine. I don't walk away from that. And if I live? You'll be stronger than almost any vampire alive. You'll never be helpless again. Silence stretched between us. Finally, she said, when? Not yet. 3 days. If you're still sure, come back. She didn't argue. She simply nodded. And 3 days later, she returned. The transformation began the same way Marcus's had. She drank my blood without flinching. Her body shut down as the change started, and Davina immediately began stabilizing spells while Marcus stayed close, steady, and supportive. Stay with us, Sarah, I murmured. You're strong. You've already survived worse than most people ever will. At first, everything seemed normal as this process ever got. Her body reacted, her breathing strained, her muscles tensed. Then something shifted. Her reactions became erratic. Uneven. Wrong. Roy, Davina's voice tightened. Something's not right. Her body isn't adapting. My chest tightened. What do you mean? The blood isn't bonding properly. It's overwhelming her system instead of integrating. No, she can handle it. She's strong. This isn't about willpower, Davina said urgently. Her body just isn't compatible. Sarah's breathing became shallow and uneven. Her face twisted with confusion and fear as she fought for control. I grabbed her hand. Sarah, stay with me. You're okay. I'm here. Her eyes focused on mine for a brief moment of clarity. Somehow, she managed a small, shaky smile. It's okay, she whispered. I knew the risk. My throat tightened. I'm sorry. She squeezed my hand once. And then she went still. No breath. No pulse. No second chance. The warehouse felt impossibly quiet. I checked again, desperate for anything, a heartbeat, a flicker, something. Nothing. Marcus's voice came gently. Roy, she's gone. I sat back slowly, staring at her face. She looked peaceful now. Still. Too still. I had promised her power. Instead, I had given her death. Hours passed. Eventually Marcus and Davina gave me space. I stayed beside her, memorizing her face, her name, the bravery it had taken for her to walk into this room. When dawn came, I wrapped her carefully and carried her outside myself. I buried her in a quiet place on the edge of town. No spectacle. No witnesses. Just respect. I'm sorry, I whispered to the earth. You deserved better than this. Rain started falling softly. I didn't move. Marcus found me later. You need to eat. I need to remember her, I said. She mattered. I know. I barely slept for days. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard her voice again, calm, brave, accepting. On the fourth day, Elijah came. I heard, he said quietly. I'm sorry. Are you? I asked. Or relieved. I'm sorry you had to learn this lesson the hardest way possible. I studied him. How many people have you turned? 73, he said evenly. 34 didn't survive. That number settled heavily in my chest. I remember all of them, he added. You never forget. You just learn how to carry it. How? By respecting their choice. By making sure their courage means something. He met my eyes. If you stop because you're afraid, then Sarah's choice becomes meaningless. I didn't answer. After he left, I went to the wall where I kept records. I wrote, Sarah Mitchell, 26, wanted freedom, wanted safety, wanted control over her life. It wasn't much. But it mattered. I didn't know if I was ready to try again. Some costs don't fade quickly. Chapter 20, Hope's birth approaches. 2 weeks later, Haley's pregnancy was obvious, and the supernatural world was losing its mind. I met Elijah at a neutral spot, an abandoned building on the outskirts. Somewhere we could talk without Klaus's paranoia hovering over us. The witches are mobilizing, Elijah said without any preamble. 3 covens have united. Their goal, destroy the child before she's born. The werewolves are split, some want to protect Haley, others fear what Klaus might do with a hybrid heir. And the vampires? Terrified. Marcel is trying to keep the peace, but his people are anxious. Everyone sees the child as either an asset or a threat. No one sees her as just a baby. Accept us. Accept us. He pulled out a flask, took a sip, and offered it. Bourbon. Smooth. Solid. I accepted. When she's born, he continued, your transformation begins, correct? Yeah. Probably like when Klaus's curse broke, my body integrating everything at once, vampire, werewolf, witch. I took a long pull. I'll be vulnerable. At least 48 hours, maybe more. Then we make the compound a fortress. Klaus will handle Haley during labor. You focus on surviving your evolution. And if the witches attack while I'm in the middle of it? Then Marcus guards you, Davina supports you magically, and I make sure Klaus doesn't accidentally kill you while you're incapacitated. His voice was calm, steady. We've survived worse. Have we? No. But we'll survive anyway. That's what we do. I handed back the flask. Why are you helping me? Really? I'm not family. I'm just another victim of your parents' nonsense. Elijah was quiet for a moment. Because you remind me of what we could have been. If our mother had chosen differently. If we'd been created by choice instead of desperation. You're building something better. I want to see that succeed. Even if it means protecting me instead of Klaus? Klaus has hybrids and strength. You have Marcus and a warehouse. Who's more in need of protection? Fair point. The next week was spent preparing. I stocked the warehouse with 30 blood bags, enough to feed through the worst of the transformation. Davina and I set up wards and protection circles. Marcus learned every entrance, every weak point, every possible threat. He was methodical, careful, and calm in a way that made me trust him without question. You're really doing this, Davina said one night, watching me. Going through another transformation. I don't have a choice. Hope's birth will trigger it whether I'm ready or not. But you could run, she said softly. Leave the city. Avoid the trigger. And leave her unprotected? No. She's innocent. She deserves someone fighting for her who isn't doing it for power. That's me. Also terrified. Terrified and committed aren't mutually exclusive, I said, sealing another bag of blood. She nodded and helped arrange the last supplies. What if you don't survive? What if it's too much? Then Marcus becomes head of my line. You get the warehouse and everything in it. And someone has to make sure Klaus doesn't name his kid something ridiculous. Roy. I'm serious. Hope Mikaelson is a good name. Don't let him ruin it. She smiled, shaking her head. You're deflecting. I'm terrified, Davina. I nearly died last time. Becoming a full Tribrid might actually kill me. I sat heavily on a crate, exhausted by the thought. But if I survive, I'll be able to protect her. That's worth the risk. You're a good person, she said simply. Despite everything. Or just stubborn. Both. We sat quietly until Marcus arrived for his shift. He took his position by the door, checking his weapons like someone who truly understood the responsibility. You ready? He asked. No. But it's happening anyway. You'll survive. You're too mean to die. Professional opinion? Observation, he said with a grin. You survived a millennium underwater. You'll survive this. I hoped he was right. The night before labor, Elijah came one last time. He brought a bottle of bourbon even better than the last and 2 glasses. We sat on the roof, the city lights sparkling below. You could have stayed hidden, he said after 10 minutes of silence. Let my family handle it. Avoid the risk entirely. I spent a millennium doing nothing. I'm done hiding. This child deserves life. I deserve to evolve past what our parents made me. That's worth the risk. Even if it kills you? Especially if it kills me. At least I'd die doing something that matters, instead of rotting at the bottom of the ocean. Elijah raised his glass. To uncertain futures and the courage to face them. We drank. The bourbon burned, the city slept unaware. Tomorrow a Tribrid would be born. And everything would change. Thank you, I said after a while. For believing in me. For helping. For being my friend when you could have been my enemy. Thank you, he said. For reminding me redemption is possible. That family origins don't define us. He straightened his suit. Survive tomorrow. We have centuries of bourbon to drink and philosophy to debate. I'll do my best. He left and I stayed on the roof until dawn, watching the sky lighten. Tomorrow, Haley would give birth. Hope Mikaelson would take her first breath. And I would either become a true Tribrid or die trying. Worth it. Whatever happens, worth it. I went downstairs, sealed myself in the basement, and waited. The bloodline connection hummed steadily. Haley's contractions had started. Labor was beginning. In a few hours, everything would change. I lay back on the cot, closed my eyes, and braced myself. Here we go. Chapter 21, Hope's Birth, Part 1. The bloodline connection screamed. I doubled over in the basement, clutching my chest as the first wave hit, Haley's contractions. I could feel them as if they were my own. The baby was coming. Soon. Marcus. My voice was tight, trembling. It's starting. He appeared at the top of the stairs instantly. You sure? I can feel her, I gasped, struggling to straighten. Through the bloodline. Labor's begun. Get Davina. Now. He was gone before I could even finish the sentence. I paced the basement, trying to keep panic at bay. This was it. Hope was about to be born. And when she took her first breath, my body would complete its evolution. Vampire, werewolf, witch, all 3 natures merging. If I survived. That was a big if. 10 minutes later, Davina arrived, backpack stuffed with grimoires. I'm here. What do you need? Pain dampening. Magical containment. And if I start tearing this warehouse apart, knock me out. Roy, promise me, Davina. If I lose control, if the magic goes wild, stop me. Whatever it takes. She nodded slowly. Okay. I promise. Marcus returned with stacks of blood bags, placing them within reach. Ready? No. But let's do this anyway. Klaus, Mikaelson compound. Klaus paced outside the bedroom, listening to Haley's heartbeat spike and fall with each contraction. She was strong, stronger than he expected. His child. The thought still terrified him. Brother, Elijah called from the courtyard. We have a problem. Klaus was down the stairs in a heartbeat. What is it? Witches. At least 20, led by Agnes. They're breaching the wards. Of course. Nothing in Klaus's life was ever simple. A scream pierced the air, Haley. His hybrid instincts surged. Protective, furious, raw. You handle the witches, he snarled, already heading toward the stairs. I'm staying with her. Klaus. I stay with her. Elijah softened. Of course. Go. Klaus stormed into the bedroom. Haley was gripping the sheets, pale and trembling. Where the hell were you? She gasped. Witches. They're attacking. Of course they are, she groaned through a contraction. This baby has the worst timing. She gets that from me. Not helping, Klaus. Downstairs, sounds of battle erupted. Elijah and Marcel's vampires were defending the compound, but Klaus didn't move. He couldn't. His place was here with his daughter. Roy Warehouse. The pain hit at midnight. It wasn't gradual. It was instant. Overwhelming. Dropped me to my knees. She's being born, I gasped. Right now. Davina's hands moved through the spell forms like lightning. Pain dampening active. Marcus, hold him down. Marcus grabbed my shoulders as my body began convulsing. This was unlike any hybrid transition. It was more intense, like my entire molecular structure was being rewritten at once. Talk to me, Davina urged. What are you feeling? Everything. I clawed at the floor, gasping. I can feel the birth. I can feel Klaus's fear. The witches. Every vampire in the city. The bloodline connection, it's amplifying everything. That's normal. Just breathe through it. I can't breathe, I'm a vampire. My spine arched. Vertebrae cracked and reshaped. Wolf instincts screamed to fight, hunt, run. And underneath, something new awoke, magic. Raw, untrained, burning through channels in my body that didn't exist 5 seconds ago. Oh God, I managed before screaming. Klaus, compound. Haley was pushing. Klaus held her hand, already broken 2 fingers, but he didn't care. You can do this, he whispered, voice tight. You're the strongest person I know. Shut up and let me squeeze your hand. Fair. I see the head, the doctor shouted. One more push. Haley screamed, gave everything, and then a cry. High, piercing, vibrating with power. It's a girl, the doctor said, placing the tiny, screaming infant on Haley's chest. Klaus stared. His daughter. Tiny. Perfect. Impossible. Hope Mikaelson. Roy Warehouse. Hope's first breath hit me like an explosion. Not metaphorically. Literally. Blood vessels ruptured and reformed. Bones shattered and rebuilt. Magic poured through me like molten fire. I was dimly aware of Marcus holding me down, Davina chanting. Pain drowned everything else. This is what hope felt. This is what it meant to be born a Tribrid. My vision flickered, human sight, golden wolf eyes, and a magical view of ley lines crisscrossing the city. Roy. Davina's voice echoed miles away. Stay with me. You're almost through. She was lying. This was only the beginning. My mouth opened to scream, but raw power erupted instead, shattering windows, sending furniture flying. The vampire, the wolf, the witch, 3 natures fighting for existence in one body. Die or adapt. I chose to adapt. I slammed the 3 together. Brute force integration. The pain peaked, white hot. Then it broke. He's stabilizing, Davina said, relief washing over her. His vitals, holy shit, his power signature just tripled. Is that good? Marcus asked. I don't know. I've never seen anything like this. I tried to sit, failed. How long? You've been transforming 6 hours, Davina said. Hope was born at midnight. It's 6 a.m. 6 hours felt like 6 years. Is she safe? Klaus has her. Elijah handled the witches. Everyone's alive. I exhaled. Relief washing over me in waves. Everyone except the witches who'd tried to kill a baby. Good. Sleep, Davina urged. Your body needs to heal. I wanted to argue, but exhaustion pulled me under. I let it take me. Klaus, compound. Klaus held his daughter, feeling his world shift. Small, fragile, but thrumming with impossible power. The first natural-born Tribrid in history. Hello, Hope, he whispered. I'm your father. Nothing will ever hurt you. Her eyes opened, blue, unfocused, but there was awareness there that shouldn't belong to a newborn. Through the bloodline connection, he felt her. Felt Roy. Another Tribrid, suffering, evolving. Klaus looked at Elijah. He's going through it too, isn't he? Yes. Marcus and Davina are with him. Will he survive? If he's half as stubborn as you? Absolutely. Klaus looked back at Hope, feeling something he hadn't felt in centuries. Hope. Maybe, finally, they'd all be okay. This wasn't the end. It was the beginning. Chapter 22, Hope's Birth, Part 2. I was drowning. Cold, eternal water pressed against my chest. Coffin walls, or was it a coffin, inches from my face. Silver burned through my heart. How long had I been here? Seconds? Hours? A millennium. Time had no meaning in the darkness. Please, I whispered to the void. Please let me out. Please. Then Esther appeared above me, smiling. Clinical. Detached. You're doing so well, Roy. Your blood is making something wonderful. Just a bit longer. I can't. You can. You will. Because you're mine. No, Roy. A hand shook my shoulder, snapping me out of it. Roy, wake up. You're hallucinating. My eyes snapped open. Not the ocean. Not a coffin. The warehouse basement. Davina's face hovered inches from mine, wide with worry and exhaustion. You were screaming, she whispered. Calling for your mother. Michael, begging them to stop. I sat up slowly. My body ached as if a freight train had rolled over me. How long? 12 hours. It's 6 p.m. 18 hours since the transformation began. 18 hours. And I was still alive. Is it done? I croaked. I don't know. Your power signature is still fluctuating. The magic, she gestured around the room. I froze. Every object, the blood bags, crates, my laptop, even Marcus's weapons, floated in midair, rotating slowly, bathed in a faint purple light. That's me, I said quietly. It's your unconscious magic. Started around hour 8. I've been containing it, but Roy, her voice shook. I'm exhausted. I can't hold this much longer. Let it drop. What? I'll control it. You don't know how. I'll figure it out. You need rest. She hesitated, then released her spell. The object stayed suspended. The purple glow intensified. Okay, magic. You're part of me now. Behave. I reached inward, found it thrumming beneath my skin, wild, raw, but undeniably mine. I grabbed the chaos and gently drew it back. Objects lowered to the floor. The glow faded. Holy shit, Davina whispered. You just controlled it. No training. No ritual. Tribrid nature, I said, standing unsteadily. My body adapted. I tested my balance. Everything felt different, stronger, alive. How bad is the warehouse? The upper floors are a mess. Windows shattered. Walls cracked. Marcus is doing damage control. Where is he? Guarding the stairs. Making sure no one investigates the magical surge. She grabbed my arm. Easy. You're not fully recovered yet. But I'm alive. Yeah, she smiled. Against all odds. Marcus appeared at the top of the stairs. You're up. Good. We have a visitor. Who? Elijah. He wants to check on you. I climbed slowly. Every movement felt foreign, like learning to walk in a body that had been rebuilt from scratch. Elijah stood in the main warehouse, surveying the wreckage. Relief washed over his face when he saw me. You survived, he said simply. Barely. How's Hope? Perfect. Klaus is surprisingly competent as a father. He stepped closer. How do you feel? Torn apart and put back together. But better. I held up a hand. Purple light flickered around my fingers. The magic is here. Raw. Untrained. Accessible. The transformation was worse than I expected, I admitted. The hallucinations, the ocean. Esther. It all came back. Elijah's expression darkened with guilt. I'm sorry. For my mother. For the trauma you carry. Not your fault. Never was. I met his eyes. Is Hope safe? The witches? Klaus handled 20 witches during the attack. Agnes is dead. The rest of the covens are terrified. Hope Mikaelson is likely the most protected infant in history. Good. We stood in the warehouse wreckage, two immortals who had survived the impossible. Something finally settled in my chest. It was done. Hope was born. I had evolved. We had both survived. You should rest, Elijah said. Properly. I spent a millennium doing nothing, Elijah. I'm done resting. He sighed but didn't argue. Fine. But if you collapse, I'm compelling Marcus to tie you to a bed. You can't compel Marcus. He's my Sire line. Then I'll do it manually. I laughed. It felt good. Fine. I'll take it easy. After Elijah left, I returned to the basement. Davina had fallen asleep on the cot, completely drained. Marcus was methodically organizing the scattered supplies, repairing the warehouse piece by piece. I sat on the floor, eyes closed, reaching inward. Vampire. Wolf. Witch. All three hummed inside me, no longer fighting for dominance. The vampire gave me strength, the wolf gave me heightened senses, and the witch gave me access to a power most vampires only dream of. I was complete. After a millennium of being used as a battery, months of recovery, I had become what I was always meant to be. A Tribrid. The first adult Tribrid in existence. Somewhere across the city, Hope Mikaelson, the second, slept in her father's arms. We're connected now, kid. Both miracles. Both impossible. I smiled in the darkness. This was just the beginning. The supernatural world had no idea what was coming, but they'd learn soon enough. The proto-original had evolved. And nothing would ever be the same. Chapter 23, Tribrid Awakening. I woke up whole. That was the first thing I noticed. Not the aches, not the exhaustion, not the chaos of the warehouse around me. Just complete. Something I had never felt before. 3 days. 72 hours of transformation. And I had survived. My eyes opened. Purple light flickered across my vision for a split second, magic responding to my consciousness before fading. I sat up slowly, testing limbs that felt both familiar and completely new. Roy. Davina's voice was cautious, hopeful. She leaned against the wall, dark circles under her eyes, a grimoire open in her lap. You're awake. Finally. How long? I croaked. 3 days. You've been out for 3 days. She scrambled over, checking my pulse even though vampires technically didn't need one. How do you feel? I tried to explain but couldn't find the words. Then I tried again. Different. Everything is different. And it was. My vampire senses were sharp, yes, but now layered. I could hear Marcus's heartbeat upstairs, steady, calm. I could feel the ley lines beneath the warehouse, pulsing like rivers of power. I could sense Davina's magical signature, bright, chaotic, unmistakably hers. And through it all, the bloodline connection hummed stronger than ever. Every vampire in the city, every drop of my blood passed down through generations, it all traced back to me in a web so complex my mind almost refused to grasp it. I can feel everything, I whispered. The magic. The ley lines. Every witch within miles. It's like being blind and suddenly seeing color. Davina smiled, tired but genuine. Welcome to the club. Overwhelming at first, but you'll adjust. I stood. My legs held. Strength coursed through muscles rebuilt from scratch. This wasn't just vampire strength or hybrid speed anymore, it was all three, fused into something new, something mine. Test something, Davina said. Try a spell. I don't know any spells. You don't need to. Tribrid magic responds to intent, not ritual. She pointed at the shattered glass covering the floor. Levitate it. Just want it to float. I stared at the shards. Float. Nothing. Don't force it, she said. Magic is like breathing. You don't think about breathing, you just do it. Once it awakens, it's the same. Okay. Don't force. Just want. I reached instinctively like I had with blood manipulation. Magic thrummed under my skin, wild, raw, but responsive. I grabbed it and guided it toward the glass. Float. The shards shuddered. Rose an inch. Then dropped. Yes. Davina clapped. Try again. I focused. This time the glass rose smoothly, spinning like tiny tornadoes. I guided the shards into the trash can one by one. Holy shit, I breathed. I just did magic. You did it without words or ritual on your second try, Davina said, practically bouncing. Most witches take weeks to master telekinesis. You did it in minutes. Tribrid advantage? I asked. Tribrid advantage. She grabbed her backpack. We need to test everything, elemental control, sensing, barriers. Davina, I said, catching her arm. You're exhausted. 3 days maintaining spells. Rest first. Testing can wait. But, rest. That's an order from your student. She deflated slightly. Fine. But when I wake up, we test everything. Deal. 2 hours later, Elijah arrived, cooler of blood bags in hand, eyes sharp. You survived, he said, setting the cooler down. I had my doubts. So did I. I tore open a bag. The blood tasted different, richer, more potent. My metabolism, hybrid and tribrid, processed it instantly, extracting every ounce of strength. How's Hope? I asked. Thriving. Klaus, surprisingly competent as a father. Paranoid but devoted. He looked around at the wrecked warehouse. Your transformation was violent. You should see it from my perspective. I'd rather not. He settled across from me. What can you do now? Besides levitate glass. I don't know yet. Magic feels limitless but untested. I finished the blood bag. Vampire and hybrid sides are stronger, maybe 20%. Hybrid transformation is instant now. No pain, no loss of control. Demonstrate. I shifted. Gold eyes. Fangs. Claws. The wolf instinct surged, but instead of swallowing me, it flowed in harmony. I shifted back in seconds. Elijah's eyebrows shot up. Impressive. And unsettling. Everything about me is unsettling, I muttered. Fair point. Roy, you're complete now. What your parents tried to create artificially, you've become naturally. The question is, what will you do with that power? I thought of Esther. Michael. The millennium underwater. The revenge I'd plotted. Then I thought of Hope, safe in Klaus's arms. Davina teaching me. Marcus guarding the warehouse. Elijah offering an alliance. I don't know yet, I admitted. But I'm not rushing into vengeance. Not when people depend on me to stay human. Good. Elijah stood. That's the answer I hoped for. After he left, I tested myself. Strength first. I punched a concrete support pillar. My fist went clean through. Speed next. I blurred across the warehouse faster than I'd ever moved. Then magic. I focused on a broken window. The shards rose, spun, and fused into a perfect pane. I can repair things. The possibilities were endless. Terrifying. With this much power, I could do incredible good or unimaginable harm. The choice was mine. At sunset, Davina woke, rested and ready. Okay, she said, setting up candles. Elemental control. We'll start with fire. She demonstrated, a small flame hovering above her palm. Your turn. No words, just want it to exist. I extended my hand. Thought of heat, of light, of fire alive in my palm. Nothing. Don't force it, she said. Magic is cooperative. Ask it, don't demand. Right. Ask. I tried again. Heat blossomed. A flame flickered, small but real. Yes. Hold it. Let it grow. The flame expanded to torch size. Heat radiated but didn't burn. My magic shielded me. Can I throw it? Try. The fireball hit the far wall, harmless sparks bursting. Okay, Davina grinned. Now water. We spent hours manipulating earth, air, fire, and water. Moving elements as easily as breathing. My Tribrid body adapted instantly. Most witches train for years to reach this level, Davina said, impressed. You did it in an afternoon. Good teacher, I said, letting the elements fall. A millennium of patience helps. I'm not in a hurry. But you learn fast when you try. Because I have to. Ancestors won't like me existing. Witches will come. Her expression darkened. Vincent wants to talk to you. The regent? Yes. He says the ancestors are upset about the Tribrid disturbance. Let them be upset. I'm not going anywhere. Roy, I didn't choose this, Davina. But I won't apologize for existing. If the ancestors have a problem, let them take it up with Esther. Davina fell silent. Vincent isn't your enemy. But the ancestors have power. If they decide you're a threat, your life could become very difficult. They're welcome to try. Famous last words. But I meant it. I was done hiding. Done letting fear dictate my life. The Tribrid was awake. The ancestors would deal with it, or get out of my way. Chapter 24, Magic Lessons Begin. Vincent Griffith showed up a week later. I was in the warehouse running combat drills with Davina, teaching her how to use leverage against opponents stronger than her, when I felt him approaching. His witch signature hit before he even stepped through the door, precise, controlled, and dripping confidence, like he knew exactly what kind of danger he was walking into. "Company," I murmured. "Stay close." Vincent walked in calmly, hands visible, expression neutral. Mid-30s, smartly dressed, like he'd just come from a city council meeting. But the aura around him said power, authority, the regent of the New Orleans witches, representing the ancestors. The same ones Davina said wanted me dead. "Roy Stark," he said. Not a greeting. Not a question. Just recognition. "Vincent Griffith," I replied, stepping between him and Davina. "What brings you here?" "We need to talk," he said. "About what you are. About what you've become." "I'm a Tribrid. You already know that." "I do. And so do the ancestors." "They're concerned." "Concerned," I echoed flatly. That had to be diplomatic witch speak. "They think you're an abomination," he said, meeting my gaze. "A vampire who can wield magic violates the natural order. They want you gone." Davina tensed beside me. Vincent held up a hand. "I'm not here to threaten you," he said. "I'm here to warn you. The ancestors have power in this city. If they decide to act, it won't be subtle. Then let them act." I met his eyes evenly. "I didn't choose to be what I am, but I won't apologize for existing. Tell your spirits that if they want me dead, they're welcome to try." Vincent studied me a long moment. "You aren't worried?" "Should I be? I survived 1,000 years at the bottom of the ocean. What can dead witches do that's worse than that?" "You'd be surprised." His voice had no heat, just resignation. "Look, I'm not here to start a war. I'm here because Davina asked me to talk before things escalate." I glanced at her. She shrugged. "Talking's better than fighting." "Smart girl," he said, relaxing slightly. "The ancestors are scared. That's all this is. Fear. You're something new, something they don't understand. Scared people do stupid things. So what do you want from me?" "Restraint. Don't flaunt your power. Don't antagonize the witch community. Give them time to accept that you exist. And if they don't? Then we deal with it when it happens." He moved toward the door. "But Roy, if you hurt witches just because the ancestors make threats, you prove them right. You become the monster they fear." He left before I could answer. Davina exhaled slowly. "That went better than I expected." "He's not wrong," I admitted. "About restraint anyway." "You're actually going to listen to him?" "I'm going to try not to start a war. There's a difference." I gestured to the training mat. "Come on. Let's finish the lesson." Over the next 3 weeks, we fell into a rhythm. Mornings, magic training. Davina taught me spells, locator magic, protection circles, basic healing. I absorbed it with a hunger I hadn't felt in a millennium. Afternoons, combat training. I showed her how to fight without magic. Pressure points, leverage, breaking holds. She improved fast. Evenings, we sparred, blending magic and combat. She'd throw spells, I'd counter with blood manipulation or hybrid speed. "You're getting dangerous," I told her after she knocked me down with a telekinesis kick combo. "That's the idea," she said, grinning, offering her hand to help me up. "Magic makes me powerful, but skill makes me dangerous." Marcus muttered from the sidelines, "She's 17 now, Roy. Practically an adult." "Marcus," I warned. "Just saying. You two spend a lot of time together. People notice." Davina flushed bright red. "It's not like that. We're just friends. Teacher and student." "Sure," Marcus said, unconvinced. "And I'm the King of France." I tossed a blood blade at his head. He dodged, laughing. Still, it stuck with me. Davina was 17. Legally almost an adult, but still someone I wanted to protect. Caring for her felt instinctual. Crossing that line would have been wrong. Predatory, even. She'd been through enough already. I kept things professional. Teacher. Student. Friend. Nothing more. Even if Marcus didn't believe me. 3 weeks in, I tried something new. I'd been practicing blood manipulation and elemental magic separately, but as a Tribrid I wondered if I could combine them. I cut my palm, letting blood pool in my hand, and focused on fire magic. Heat. Burn. Merge. The blood caught fire. Purple-black flames danced along its surface without consuming it. Holy shit, Davina whispered. Roy, that's fusion magic. Most witches can't even dream of doing that. I shaped the flaming blood into a blade. It held perfectly. This is what it means to be a Tribrid, I said, watching the weapon. Not just having 3 natures but blending them into something unique. I experimented further. Water made it liquid, flowing like mercury, earth hardened it into crystal, air turned it into a razor-sharp mist. By the end of the session I'd created whips, shields, and vapor weapons, all variations of the same principle. The ancestors are going to hate this, Davina said, awe and worry mixed in her voice. Let them hate it. I'm done caring what dead witches think. I dissolved the constructs. They want me to hide, to pretend I'm not what I am. But I'm not hiding anymore. Davina bit her lip. You sound like Klaus. I sound like someone who spent 1,000 years being controlled. Never again. That night, practicing alone, I pushed my limits further. My power was growing daily, pushing me into territory no vampire had ever explored. Esther wanted ultimate power. She wanted control. I just wanted freedom. The ancestors feared me? Good. That fear would keep them cautious while I mastered everything I could. And when I was ready, Esther and Mikael would finally see exactly what kind of wonderful thing they had created. Chapter 25, Meeting Hope. Elijah had called 3 times before I finally agreed to go to the Mikaelson compound. Klaus wants to talk, he said over the phone. About what? Hope. He's considering allowing you to meet her. My chest did that strange, unpredictable thing. A heartbeat skipped, odd considering how rarely mine actually functioned. Considering? He's protective. Understandably. But I've been advocating for you, Elijah explained. There was a pause. You saved Haley. Protected Hope during the pregnancy. Went through a Tribrid transformation because of her. Klaus recognizes that carries weight. When? This afternoon. 2 o'clock. Come alone. He hung up before I could ask what come alone meant in terms of weapons. The compound looked different in the daylight. Less menacing. More like a home than a fortress. Somewhere a family lived instead of paranoid immortals plotting. Klaus met me at the gate. Roy Stark. His voice was neutral, carefully measured. Thank you for coming. Thanks for the invitation. We stared at each other. 2 hybrids. 2 Tribrids technically, though Hope was the only natural-born one. Tension stretched between us like a rubber band ready to snap. Elijah says you want to meet my daughter, Klaus said finally. I've been protecting her from a distance for months. Felt like it was time to actually meet her. And why should I allow that? Because we're connected. Both Tribrids. Both impossible. She'll need someone who understands what that means when she's older. I met his eyes steadily. And because I've proven I'm not a threat. If I wanted to hurt her, I could have done it a dozen times by now. Klaus's jaw tightened. If you harm one hair on her head, you'll kill me. I know. You've made that threat several times already. I kept my voice calm. But Klaus? I'm not here to hurt her. I'm here because she's innocent. And innocent lives are worth protecting, even from their own family's enemies. Something shifted. He didn't soften, Klaus didn't do that, but there was acknowledgement. Recognition of truth. 1 meeting, he said. I'll be watching. Any suspicious movement and you'll learn why I'm called the original hybrid. Fair enough. He led me through the compound. Every vampire we passed watched with thinly veiled wariness. Haley was in the courtyard with Elijah, looking up as we entered. Roy, she said, cautious but not hostile. You're the one dealing with the witches who threaten my baby. Among other things. Thank you. Sincerely. Don't mention it. We climbed to the 2nd floor. Klaus stopped outside a nursery door, his hand on the knob. Rules, he said. No touching without permission. No magic near her. No sudden movements. Understood? Understood. He opened the door. The nursery was surprisingly normal, soft colors, toys neatly arranged, a crib in the center. And in that crib, sleeping peacefully, was Hope Mikaelson. I approached slowly, giving Klaus every chance to stop me. He just watched, arms crossed, ready to move at the first sign of danger. She was tiny. Fragile. And yet impossible. Her magical signature blazed even while she slept. Vampire, wolf, witch, all three natures humming in perfect harmony. Like mine but untouched. Untainted. Natural. I stopped at the edge of the crib, studying the infant who had triggered my own transformation. Dark hair, Klaus's features softened by Haley's influence. Hello, little miracle. Her eyes snapped open. Not gradually. Not blinking. Just open. Glowing with a faint purple light, Tribrid eyes, recognizing their mirror. That isn't normal, Klaus muttered behind me. She feels me, I said softly. The connection hummed between us, subtle and undeniable. Hope didn't cry. She just stared with an awareness that shouldn't belong to a newborn. Then she smiled, a tiny fleeting thing, and reached up. I looked at Klaus. Can I? He hesitated. Then nodded. I offered my finger. Hope grabbed it with surprising strength. Magic sparked between us, not painful, just recognition. Two Tribrids acknowledging each other across a bond deeper than blood. I felt her nature, vampire strength waiting to grow, wolf instincts lying dormant, a witch's power that would someday eclipse the city. She was the future. Everything I was meant to be. Hello, little miracle, I whispered. We're going to be very good friends. Hope made a small sound, not a laugh, not a cry. A tiny acknowledgement. Klaus stepped closer, watching with an expression I couldn't fully read. Suspicion mixed with, maybe pride. She likes you, he said quietly. She doesn't like most people. Maybe she senses I'm like her. Or maybe she's just a terrible judge of character. I smiled. Probably that. Hope held my finger for a few minutes before releasing it and drifting back to sleep. I stepped back to face Klaus and Haley. I swear on my existence, I said formally, nothing will harm her while I live. Not witches, not werewolves, not your enemies. She's the future, and I'll burn the world down before anyone extinguishes her light. Klaus studied my face, searching for lies, for hidden agendas. He wouldn't find any. Why? He asked. Why do you care about a child who isn't yours? Because she's innocent, I said, glancing at the crib. She didn't ask to be born into this nightmare. And because I know what it's like to be used for what you are. She'll have the choice I never had. Freedom to be who she wants instead of what others need. Silence. Then Haley stepped forward, offering her hand. Thank you, she said. For protecting her. For caring when you didn't have to. I shook her hand. She's worth it. Klaus didn't offer his hand. But he nodded. I took it. Elijah walked me out. That went well, he said. Klaus didn't rip my heart out. I'm calling it a victory. He's afraid, Roy. Afraid of failing her. Your presence complicates that fear. Because I'm powerful? No. Because you're proof that power doesn't require cruelty. He needs that example. I looked back at the compound. I'll keep protecting her from the shadows. That's my purpose now. And your revenge against my parents? It can wait. Hope comes first. I left the compound feeling something I hadn't felt in a millennium, purpose. Real, meaningful purpose. Hope Mikaelson would grow up safe. And I would make sure of it, whatever it took.
Disclaimer: I don't own this story. If the original author requests its removal, this video will be taken down.
Chapter 26, The Prank War Escalates. The opera singers were Cole's idea. You need to go bigger, he said, sprawled on my warehouse couch like he owned it. Klaus expects small pranks now. Time to traumatize him properly. Define properly. Public humiliation on a scale that makes him question his entire existence. I grinned. I'm listening. Cole had been undaggered 3 weeks ago, Klaus's decision, apparently because he wanted family unity for Hope. The result was chaos incarnate in a suit, and I loved him immediately. 50 humans, Cole said, gesturing wildly. Compel them to follow Klaus through the French Quarter. Singing opera. Dramatically. That's insane. That's the point. Rebecca, sitting across from us, laughed. Nick will lose his mind. Do it. So I did. Klaus's POV came to me later through Marcel, who'd watched the entire thing with barely contained glee. According to Marcel, Klaus had been walking through the French Quarter at sunset, his usual brooding stroll, as Rebecca called it, when the first singer appeared. A middle-aged man stepping out of an alley, launching into O Sol Mio at full volume. Klaus had stopped. Stared. Kept walking. Then another singer appeared. And another. Within 5 minutes, Klaus had 50 people following him, all singing different opera pieces in perfect harmony, completely oblivious to the stares from tourists. Klaus couldn't kill them, too many witnesses, too many cameras. Couldn't compel them to stop without breaking the masquerade. Couldn't even run without looking like he was fleeing from musical theater enthusiasts. So he endured. An entire hour of walking through New Orleans with a chorus of compelled opera singers following him like deranged groupies. By the time he reached the compound, Elijah was on the phone with Marcel, trying not to laugh. "Your brother," Marcel had said between chuckles, "has a parade of singing admirers. It's magnificent." Klaus's roar had echoed through the French Quarter. I was at a cafe when Klaus found me, enjoying coffee I didn't need and watching the street. He appeared across the table like a thundercloud given human form. "You," he snarled. "Me," I agreed, sipping coffee calmly. 50 humans. Opera. Following me for an hour. Did you enjoy the show? You will pay for this. Looking forward to it. He left in a fury. I finished my coffee, paid, and went home grinning like an idiot. Klaus's revenge came 2 days later. I walked into a bar near the warehouse district, one of my usual spots, and froze. Everyone in the bar had Marcel's face. Not masks. Not makeup. Actual Marcel faces on different bodies, all staring at me with identical expressions of confusion. "What the hell?" one Marcel said. "Is this a vampire thing?" another Marcel asked. I blinked. Focused my magical senses. Found the illusion spell wrapped around my perception like a blanket. Klaus hired a witch. I raised my hand, concentrated, and shattered the illusion with a pulse of Tribrid magic. The bar returned to normal, dozen different faces, all equally confused about why I'd been standing in the doorway looking horrified. "Nice try," I muttered, pulling out my phone. I called Klaus. He answered on the first ring, laughing. "How was the bar?" he asked innocently. "Creative. But I'm a witch now too. Want to compare magic?" The laughing stopped. "You're insufferable," says the man who compelled an entire opera company. "That was you." "Exactly. Escalation, Klaus. You taught me well." I hung up. Heard something crash in the background before the call disconnected. Worth it. Cole and Rebecca ambushed me 3 days later with a plan so absurd I almost said no. Almost. "Drawings," Cole said, barely containing his glee. "Compromising drawings. Of Klaus. Everywhere." Everywhere? His studio. His bedroom. The courtyard. The kitchen. Rebecca grinned. "We'll compel artists to draw him in unfortunate situations. Then plaster them across the compound." "That's evil." "That's inspired," Cole corrected. "You're in?" "Obviously." We executed the plan at 3 a.m. 50 drawings, all professionally done, all depicting Klaus in situations ranging from embarrassing to outright ridiculous. Klaus the ballet dancer. Klaus cuddling with bunnies. Klaus in a dress. Klaus crying over spilled milk. We hung them everywhere. Klaus woke up to artwork covering every surface of the compound. His roar shook the building. Elijah found us in the courtyard, trying not to laugh as Klaus tore down drawings with increasing fury. "Are you 12-year-olds?" Elijah demanded, though his lips twitched. "Must I separate you?" "He started it," I said. "You compelled 50 people to sing opera." Klaus shouted from inside. "You made me see 30 Marcels." That was funny. Cole was doubled over laughing. "Oh, I like this new addition to family. He makes Nick wonderfully unhinged." I high-fived him. Rebecca joined in, making it a 3-way celebration of Klaus's suffering. Klaus emerged from the compound, holding a particularly unflattering drawing of himself in a tutu. "This ends now, does it?" I asked innocently. "Yes. I'm declaring a truce." "You're surrendering?" "I'm being the mature one." "First time for everything," Rebecca muttered. Klaus threw the drawing at her. She caught it, laughing. Elijah massaged his temples. "I've lived 1,000 years. Survived wars, plagues, and family drama that would break most people. And yet somehow watching you 3 prank my brother is the most exhausting thing I've ever experienced." "You love it," Cole said. "I tolerate it. There's a difference." But he was smiling. Just a little. Later, after everyone had left and I was back at the warehouse, Marcus cornered me. "You know you're basically part of their family now, right?" he said. "What? No. We're just..." "You prank Klaus with his siblings. You protect Hope like she's your own kid. You have bourbon with Elijah and chaos sessions with Cole. Your family Roy." I sat down heavily. "That's not what I planned." "Plans change. You came here for revenge. You stayed for something better." "I haven't forgiven Esther and Michael." "No. But you found something worth protecting beyond revenge. That's growth." Marcus left me alone with that thought. I sat in the warehouse, thinking about opera singers and illusion spells and drawings of Klaus in tutus. About Hope's tiny hand gripping my finger. About Elijah's bourbon and Cole's chaos and Rebecca's genuine joy when Klaus suffered. I'd come to New Orleans planning vengeance. Planning to make Esther and Michael scream the way they'd made me scream. Instead, I'd accidentally found family. The irony wasn't lost on me. Neither was the warmth that came with it. Maybe revenge could wait a bit longer. Maybe this, pranks and bourbon and protecting an innocent baby, maybe this was worth more than 1,000 years of rage. We'll see, I told myself. But I was smiling as I thought it. And that had to count for something. Chapter 27, Marcel's Beast Transformation. The vampire moved wrong. That was my first clue something had changed. Lucien Castle, I recognized him from my meta-knowledge, one of the first vampires Klaus sired, was fighting Elijah in the street outside a warehouse, and his speed was wrong. Faster than an original should be. Stronger. More aggressive. And his bite. I watched from 3 rooftops away as Lucien caught Elijah's arm and bit down. Elijah screamed, actually screamed, which originals didn't do, and tore himself free, stumbling backward. The wound wasn't healing. "Shit," I muttered. Lucien laughed, wiping blood from his mouth. "How does it feel, Elijah? To finally have something that can kill you." Then he was gone, blurring away before Klaus arrived with reinforcements. I stayed on the rooftop, watching Elijah collapse, watching Klaus catch him with genuine panic on his face. The wound on Elijah's arm was turning black, veins darkening like poison spreading. Enhanced original. Upgraded. And that bite is lethal. I pulled out my phone, called Davina. "We have a problem." "What kind of problem?" "The kind where someone just created a vampire that can kill originals with a bite. I need you to research upgraded original serums. Now, on it." I hung up and watched the chaos below. Klaus was screaming for Freya, for anyone who could help. Haley had appeared, taking Hope inside away from the violence. And I felt nothing through the bloodline. No transfer. No absorption beginning. Because Lucien isn't my bloodline. He's Klaus's. The evolution won't transfer unless someone in my direct line took the serum. The research took 3 days. Davina found references in old grimoires to enhancement magic. Freya had apparently created the serum using werewolf venom, magic, and vampire blood. The result was a beast, stronger than originals, faster, with a bite that could actually kill them. Lucien had been the test subject. Now he was terrorizing the city, proving his superiority over the beings who'd made him. Klaus wanted him dead. I wanted his power. "This is dangerous thinking," Davina said when I explained my plan. "If you get that venom, you can kill the Mikaelsons. All of them. That's going to change how they see you. It'll change how Esther and Michael see me. If they ever come back." I paced the warehouse. That venom is the final piece. The ultimate weapon. With it, I can end them permanently. At what cost, Roy? The Mikaelsons are your friends now. Klaus trusts you with hope. Elijah drinks bourbon with you. Cole blows up buildings with you. Your family. They're not my family. They're the children of my torturers. Keep telling yourself that. She closed the grimoire. But when you look at Hope, when you prank Klaus, when you debate philosophy with Elijah, that's family. And acquiring a weapon that can kill them? That's going to hurt that family. Even if you never use it. She left before I could argue. I stood in the warehouse alone and tried to figure out what I actually wanted. Revenge? Or this weird complicated thing I'd built in New Orleans? Marcel took the serum 5 days later. I watched from the shadows as Vincent performed the ritual in an abandoned church. Marcel had been backed into a corner by Klaus, king of the city versus the original hybrid, centuries of tension finally boiling over. And Marcel chose power. The transformation was brutal. Marcel convulsed on the floor, screaming as his body rewrote itself into something beyond original. Stronger. Faster. Lethal. When he stood, his eyes had changed. Still Marcel. Still himself. But more. The beast was born. And the moment his transformation completed, I felt it. Burning. In my fangs, in my bloodline connection, in the hybrid nature that tied me to every vampire evolution. The beast venom beginning its transfer. There it is, I whispered. 24 to 48 hours. That's how long evolution absorption took. I had 2 days before I possessed the power to kill originals. I isolated myself in the warehouse basement. Marcus stood guard upstairs with strict instructions, no one in, no matter who asked. Davina had reluctantly agreed to stay away, though she'd left enough blood bags to last me a week. The transfer started at hour 12. My hybrid fangs burned like someone had shoved hot coals in my mouth. I could feel the venom developing, my body adapting Marcel's enhancement through the bloodline connection. Not as strong as Marcel, he was the direct recipient, but enough. Enough to be lethal. The pain peaked at hour 36. My jaw ached, fangs extending and retracting involuntarily. Every swallow tasted like copper and death. Then it settled. At hour 48, I bit my own wrist to test it. The wound turned black. Veins darkened. Spread. Then my healing factor kicked in, burning out the venom before it could kill me. Immune to my own bite. Makes sense. I needed a test subject. I found a willing volunteer 3 hours later, vampire from Marcel's ranks, mid-level, loyal enough to trust me, but not important enough that his death would start a war. You sure about this? He asked nervously. Positive. It won't kill you, you're not an original. But I need to confirm the venom only affects them. I met his eyes, compelled just to be sure he'd cooperate. This is going to hurt. A lot. But you'll heal. He nodded. Offered his arm. I bit down. The venom flooded into his system. He gasped, stumbled, but didn't die. Just experienced intense pain for about 30 seconds before his healing factor cleared it out. Holy shit, he breathed. That was lethal. To originals. Not to you. I released him. Thank you for the test. You can go. He left quickly, probably to tell everyone that Roy Stark now possessed original killing venom. Good. Let them know. Let them be cautious. Let Esther and Michael hear about it wherever they were. Elijah visited that night. I heard, he said without preamble, about the venom transfer. And you now possess the power to kill me. To kill my family. All of us. He sat on the crate across from me. That changes things. Does it? I could kill you before. Through other means. Compulsion. Blood detonation. Hybrid strength. I met his eyes. This just adds another option. An option that's specifically designed to kill originals. That's different than theoretical capability. Elijah. I leaned forward. I'm not going to kill you. Or Klaus. Or Rebecca or Cole. I searched for words. You're not my enemies. Your parents are. And if my parents return? If you have to choose between revenge and friendship, then I'll cross that bridge when I get there. But right now? You're safe. All of you. As long as you don't betray me. He studied my face. Looking for lies. Manipulation. Hidden agendas. He wouldn't find any. Because I meant it. The Mikaelsons had become something I hadn't expected. Not quite family. Not quite friends. But important. Very well, Elijah said finally. I trust you. Despite the danger. Despite the risk. Why? Because you've had dozens of opportunities to kill us and haven't. Because you protect Hope like she's yours. Because you prank Klaus instead of murdering him. He stood. You're choosing to be better than your worst impulses. That deserves trust. After he left, I sat in the darkness and thought about the venom burning in my fangs. The ultimate weapon. The final piece. Everything I needed to make Esther and Michael suffer. And all it cost me was the comfort of knowing my friends would never have to fear my bite. Worth it, I told myself. But I wasn't entirely sure I believed it. Chapter 28, Cole's Fascination. Cole broke into my warehouse at 3 a.m. I felt him coming, magical signature chaotic and bright, moving with the subtlety of a hurricane, and met him at the door before he could pick the lock. Can I help you? I asked. Yes. He pushed past me, practically vibrating with excitement. Your impossibility made flesh and I must understand your magic. It's 3 a.m. Magic doesn't sleep. He spun around, eyes alight with manic curiosity. You're Tribrid. Vampire, werewolf, witch. That shouldn't exist. The magic should cancel each other out. But they don't. Why? I blinked. You want to study me? I want to dissect your magical structure and understand how you synthesize contradictory natures into functional power, yes. He grinned. Don't worry, metaphorical dissection only. Mostly. Despite myself, I smiled. Klaus's paranoia was exhausting. Elijah's philosophy was valuable but heavy. Cole's chaos was refreshing. Fine. But you're making coffee first. Done. We spent the next 6 hours discussing magic theory. Cole had centuries of knowledge, witch magic, dark magic, forbidden spells most witches wouldn't touch. I had Tribrid synthesis and modern creativity. The combination was explosive. Show me blood manipulation, Cole demanded around hour 3. I cut my palm, let blood pool, then shaped it into a blade. Basic hemokinesis. Boring. What can you do with magic added? This. I focused, channeling fire magic into the blood. It ignited, burning without consuming. Or this. I switched to ice magic. The blood crystallized, harder than steel. Cole's eyes went wide. You're synthesizing disciplines. Combining blood magic with elemental work. That's beautiful disaster. Disaster? In the best way. He grabbed my arm. Teach me. I've studied magic for centuries but never seen fusion like this. Please. I'm begging. I never beg. What can you teach me in exchange? His grin was feral. Everything. The lessons became routine. 3 times a week, Cole would appear at my warehouse with new spell theories or forbidden grimoires he'd borrowed from Freya. We'd experiment, push boundaries, see what happened when you combined magic in ways no witch had tried. Davina joined us after the first week, initially suspicious of Cole but warming up when she realized he actually respected her knowledge. The witch prodigy and the Tribrid abomination, Cole declared during one session. We're going to revolutionize magic. Or blow up the city. Either way, exciting. Let's aim for revolution, Davina said dryly. We created weapons that drank magic from opponents. Shields that fed back damage to attackers. Spells that combined blood manipulation with elemental control in ways that shouldn't work but did. And occasionally we blew things up. The warehouse wing explosion happened during our 4th week of research. What if, Cole said, we combined your blood detonation ability with amplification magic? That sounds like a terrible idea, Davina warned. All the best ideas sound terrible. Cole was already drawing spell circles. Roy, give me a drop of blood. Just one. I should have said no. Should have exercised caution. Instead, I cut my finger and let a drop fall into Cole's spell circle. He activated the amplification spell. The drop exploded with the force of a small bomb. The entire west wing of the warehouse disintegrated. The shockwave knocked all 3 of us off our feet. Debris rained down and I heard Marcus screaming from upstairs. Davina stared at the smoking crater where the wall used to be. I hate you both. That was magnificent. Cole shouted, covered in dust and grinning like a maniac. Elijah arrived 10 minutes later, surveying the destruction with barely contained fury. Explain, he said. Just that one word. Calm. Controlled. Terrifying. Science requires sacrifice. Cole declared. That was historical building. It survived the Civil War. And now it's survived us. Barely. Cole dusted himself off. But we learned so much. Worth it. Elijah looked at me. Roy, you're supposed to be the responsible one. In my defense, I did suggest this was a terrible idea. And then you did it anyway. Well, yes. Elijah pinched the bridge of his nose. I'm too old for this. All of you, no more experiments without supervision. You're not our father, Cole said. No. But I'm the one who has to explain to Klaus why there's a crater in the warehouse district. He pointed at each of us. Responsible magic from now on, or I'm confiscating your grimoires. He left. We waited until he was gone. Then Cole pulled out another grimoire. So, next experiment? Davina and I groaned. But we didn't say no. The prank happened 2 weeks later. I have an idea, Cole said, sprawled on my repaired warehouse floor. Spelled portraits. That scream insults at Klaus when he walks by. Cole. They regenerate when destroyed. He'll be fighting enchanted art for hours. That's psychological warfare. That's hilarious. He sat up. Come on. You've been too serious since the Marcel thing. You need chaos. I provide chaos. It's symbiotic. Fine. But if Klaus kills us, I'm blaming you. Acceptable. We created 17 portraits. All of Klaus. All spelling to scream random insults when he approached. Your hair looks stupid. Hybrid more like Tribrid. Hope deserves better. We hung them throughout the compound while Klaus was out. The screaming started the moment he returned. Klaus destroyed the first portrait. It regenerated in seconds, screaming louder. He destroyed 5 more. They all came back. By portrait 17, Klaus was screaming back at them. Rebecca found us watching from across the street, laughing so hard we could barely breathe. You two are terrible, she said, grinning. But also, that's the funniest thing I've seen in a century. You're welcome, Cole managed between laughs. Klaus eventually figured out the spell and dispelled all of them. But not before Marcel had recorded the entire thing and sent it to half of New Orleans. Klaus didn't speak to us for 3 days. Worth it. That night, sitting in my warehouse with Cole sprawled on the couch and Davina organizing spell books, I had a moment of clarity. I'd come to New Orleans for revenge. To make Esther and Michael suffer for what they'd done to me. Instead, I'd found Elijah's philosophical debates, Rebecca's shopping trips, and genuine laughter. Klaus's paranoia that I could needle without actual consequences. And Cole's chaos that made immortality feel less like a burden and more like an adventure. I'd found family. Weird, dysfunctional, occasionally homicidal family. But family nonetheless. Maybe that was the best revenge. Not making them suffer. But being happy despite what their parents had done. Building something good from the foundation of torture. You're brooding, Cole observed. Stop it. Brooding is Elijah's thing. I'm not brooding. I'm thinking. Same thing. Stop. He threw a spell book at my head. We have 3 more experiments tonight. No time for feelings. Davina laughed. He's right. Feelings are inefficient. I caught the book, smiled, and got back to work. Revenge could wait. This magic and chaos and family was worth more. Chapter 29, Davina's Power Growth. The car lifted off the ground. Not a toy car. Not a model. A full-size sedan floating 3 feet above the parking lot while Davina stood 30 feet away, hand outstretched, concentration absolute. Holy shit, I breathed. Cole clapped slowly. The student has become the master. Davina set the car down gently, turned to us with a grin that was pure triumph. Did you see that? I just levitated a car. We saw. I walked over, genuinely proud. 6 months ago you could barely lift a book. Now you're throwing vehicles around. You've become terrifying. I love it, Cole added. You're like tiny magical apocalypse. Learn from the best abomination and the best troublemaker. She gestured between us. Cole bowed dramatically. We accept this honor. We've been training for 4 months now. 3 times a week, sometimes more. Cole teaching advanced spell work from centuries of practice. Me demonstrating blood magic fusion and Tribrid synthesis. Davina absorbing everything like a sponge and making it her own. The results were impressive. And slightly terrifying. Try the shield, I said. Original level strength. Davina nodded, planted her feet and cast. Purple energy flared around her in a dome. Hit it. I punched the shield. Full strength. My fist bounced off like I'd hit reinforced steel. Again. Harder. I punched again, adding hybrid strength. The shield flickered but held. 1 more time. Everything. I combined vampire speed, hybrid power, and Tribrid enhancement. Hit the shield with everything I had. It cracked. But didn't break. Davina. I stepped back, shaking out my hand. That shield just survived an attack that would cave in a building. You're not just powerful anymore. You're dangerous. She dissolved the shield, breathing hard. Good. I'm tired of being the victim everyone targets. Fair point. We broke for lunch at a cafe near the warehouse. Cole ordered half the menu, vampire who still enjoyed food for the taste, while Davina and I shared fries and coffee. The conversation drifted from magic theory to gossip about Klaus's latest paranoid episode. He'd hired 6 new security guards after the portrait prank. "You're staring," Davina said without looking up from her fries. I blinked. "What?" "You've been staring at me for like 5 minutes. It's weird." Cole smirked into his burger. "Unhelpful bastard. Sorry. I was just thinking about how far you've come. From the scared girl Marcel was hiding to this." I gestured at her. "You're confident now. Powerful. It's good to see." "It's because of you too. You taught me that power isn't something to fear. It's something to master." "And used to blow up warehouses," Cole added. "That was 1 time. It was 3 times. Okay, 3 times. But we learned important lessons each time." They bickered while I watched, something warm settling in my chest. This was good. This, training and laughter and friendship, was worth more than revenge. Then Davina's hand brushed mine, reaching for a fry. Magic sparked. Literally. Purple energy crackling between our skin where we touched. We both froze. "Sorry," she said, pulling back. "That happens sometimes when 2 magic users." "It's fine." I flexed my hand, feeling the lingering tingle. "Just unexpected." Cole was watching us with knowing eyes but didn't comment. The moment passed. We finished lunch. Headed back to training. But I couldn't stop thinking about the spark. About the way she hadn't pulled away immediately. About the complicated something in her eyes when our magic touched. "Don't," I told myself. "She's 18. You're ancient. This is inappropriate on 17 different levels." But my stupid heart didn't care about levels. The conversation happened 3 days later. We were practicing advanced spell chains, complex magic that required sustained focus, when I noticed Davina struggling with a component. I moved closer to demonstrate, hand covering hers to guide the gesture. Magic sparked again. Stronger this time. She didn't pull away. Just looked up at me, and there was something in her expression that made my breath catch. "Roy," she said quietly. "We should talk about this." "About what?" "Don't play dumb. You know what?" Cole had left an hour ago. The warehouse was empty. Just us and the uncomfortable conversation neither of us wanted to have. "Okay," I said, stepping back to give her space. "Let's talk." She sat on a crate, gathering her thoughts. "I care about you. More than I should. More than makes sense given the age difference and the power dynamic and all the reasons this is complicated." My chest tightened. "Davina. Let me finish." She took a breath. "I know you care about me too. I'm not blind. The way you look at me sometimes, the way you protect me, it's more than just teacher and student." "You're right. It is. So what do we do about it?" I sat across from her, tried to find words that wouldn't sound like excuses. "Nothing. For now. Because you're 18 and I'm ancient. I know. Everyone keeps reminding me." She frowned. "But you died at 19. Mentally, you're not that much older than me. I have a millennium of experience. That's not nothing. It's not everything either." She leaned forward. "Roy, I'm not asking you to make a decision right now. I'm just acknowledging this exists. Whatever this is. And what do you want?" "I want time. To figure out what I feel without pressure. To know that if something happens between us, it's because I chose it. Not because you have power over me, or because I'm grateful, or because I'm confused." She met my eyes. "Can you give me that?" "Yes." Without hesitation. "Take all the time you need." "And Davina? If you decide this isn't what you want, if you'd rather just be friends, that's okay too. I'm not going anywhere." She smiled. Small but genuine. "Thank you." We didn't talk about it again that day. Just went back to magic practice, the tension acknowledged but not acted on. But something had shifted. We both felt it. Marcel cornered me 2 days later. "We need to talk," he said, blocking my path to the warehouse. "About Davina." "Shit. What about her?" "About you and her. Don't play dumb, everyone's noticed the way you look at each other. Cole makes jokes about it. Rebecca asked me if you two were dating." "We're not." "But you want to be." "Not a question." "Roy, she's 18. You're over 1,000 years old. You see how that's problematic?" "I do. Which is why nothing's happened." Yet. Marcel's voice was hard. Look, I raised that girl. Protected her when her own people tried to kill her. She's like a daughter to me. So I'm asking, as someone who cares about her, what are your intentions? I could have lied. Made excuses. Instead, I went with honesty. I died at 19. Mentally, emotionally, I'm barely older than her. But you're right, the experience gap is massive. The power dynamic is complicated. All of that is true. I met his eyes. So I'm not pushing anything. She knows how I feel. I know how she feels. And we're both waiting to see if this is real or just proximity and gratitude and confusion. And if it is real, then we'll figure it out. Together. With her making the choices, not me deciding for her. Marcel studied me for a long moment. If you hurt her, beast venom won't save me. I know. You've made that threat clear. I softened my voice. Marcel, I care about her. Genuinely. I'm not playing games. And I'm trying to do this right, even though I have no idea what right looks like. He relaxed slightly. Okay. I believe you. But Roy? The age thing doesn't go away just because you died young. People will judge. The supernatural community will have opinions. You both need to be ready for that. If it gets there, we will be. Marcel left. I stood in the alley processing. He wasn't wrong. About any of it. The complications were real. The judgment would be harsh. But watching Davina master magic, seeing her confidence grow, feeling the spark when our hands touched, that was real too. Time, I reminded myself. She asked for time. Give her that. I could wait. I'd waited a millennium underwater. I could wait for her to decide if this was what she wanted. That night, I watched her practice with Cole from across the warehouse. She levitated 3 objects at once now, maintaining perfect control. Her magical signature had grown from bright chaos to focused power. She was becoming one of New Orleans's most formidable witches. And she was beautiful. Not just physically, though that too, but in the way she moved through the world. Confident without arrogance. Powerful without cruelty. Kind despite everything she'd endured. She caught me staring. Smiled before returning to the spell. The crush that started with protection had become something deeper. Something that terrified me because I actually cared what happened. Whether she chose me or not. Whether this worked or crashed and burned. Her choice, I reminded myself. Always her choice. And if she chose me? Then I'd do everything in my power to be worth it. Chapter 30, Esther's Return, Part 1. The world went sideways. One second I was talking to Davina about spell components. The next I was on my knees, hands clutching my head, drowning in sensation that had nothing to do with the physical world. Esther. Her presence slammed into me through the blood connection, the ritual she'd performed 1,000 years ago, creating psychic link between torturer and victim. She was here. In New Orleans. Alive again. And I was back in the cell. Water crushing my chest. Silver burning through my heart. Esther's clinical voice, just a bit more blood. You're doing so well. Roy. Davina's hands on my shoulders, shaking me. Roy, look at me. You're not there. You're here. But I couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. The ocean pressed down, eternal and dark, and I'd been there forever and would be there forever, and... Roy. Her voice cut through the panic. I gasped, focused on her face. Brown eyes wide with concern. Real. Present. Not memory. You're here, she said firmly. In the warehouse. With me. You're safe. I managed a nod, hands still shaking. She's back. Esther. She's back. Davina's expression hardened. Are you sure? I can feel her. Through the blood connection. She's in the city. I stood on unsteady legs. I need to find Elijah. Need to. You need to calm down first. She grabbed my arm. You're in no condition to face her like this. I've been preparing for this for months. I'm ready. You're having a panic attack. That's not ready. She wasn't wrong. My hands were still trembling. Heart racing despite not needing to beat. Every instinct screaming to run or fight or hide. Get it together. You're not the weak vampire she imprisoned anymore. You're Tribrid. You have beast venom. You can end her. I took a breath. Forced calm. Okay. I'm okay. Liar. But better. Davina squeezed my arm. We'll find Elijah together. You're not facing this alone. Esther was at the compound. I felt her presence like acid on my skin as Davina and I approached. She'd taken a new body, possession magic, probably, and was standing in the courtyard talking to Elijah like she had every right to be there. Klaus stood nearby, expression unreadable. Finn was beside Esther, loyal as always to the mother who'd failed them all. I walked through the gate. Esther turned. Our eyes met. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Just stared across the courtyard at each other. Torturer and victim. Creator and creation. 1,000 years of history compressed into silence. Then she smiled. My greatest work, she said, voice warm with twisted pride. Look at what you've become. Tribrid. Powerful beyond measure. I knew you'd be remarkable. My voice came out ice cold. Your greatest crime? I've had a millennium to plan what I'll do to you. Would you like a preview? So hostile. After everything I gave you. Gave me? I stepped forward. You drained me for 5 years. Experimented on me like livestock. Sealed me in a coffin at the bottom of the ocean for 1,000 years. You gave me nothing but torture. I gave you purpose. Immortality. Power. She gestured at me. Without me, you'd be nothing. Dead in that other world you came from. She knows about the transmigration. Of course she does. She was there when I arrived. Without you, I said carefully, I'd be free. But since we're here, let me show you what your victim became. I cut my palm. Blood rose, shaped itself into blade burning with purple fire. Hemokinesis plus elemental magic, fusion only Tribrid could achieve. Esther raised her hands. Magic crackled. She threw a spell, something that would have destroyed a normal vampire. I swatted it aside like a mosquito. Her eyes widened. Just a fraction. Fear beneath the confidence. You created vampires to fight Michael, I said, walking forward slowly. I became Tribrid naturally. You tried to play God. The burning blood blade extended, razor-sharp and impossible. I became something God fears. Such anger. Her smile was brittle now. You've spent 1,000 years becoming weapon. I made you purposefully. Then you'll die by your own creation. Poetic, don't you think? I lunged. Esther vanished. Teleportation spell, leaving behind only smoke. I stood in the courtyard, blood blade dripping fire onto stone, chest heaving with adrenaline and rage. Klaus stepped forward. You truly mean to kill my mother? I turned to face him. She tortured me for years. Imprisoned me for a millennium. She's not your mother anymore, Klaus. She's my torturer. And torturers answer for their sins. Klaus was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded. Once. Not approval. Understanding. If you kill her, he said slowly, do it away from hope. My daughter doesn't need to see that. Agreed. Elijah approached cautiously. Roy, are you all right? No. But I will be. Once she's dead. And if she returns? If she has contingencies? Then I'll kill her again. And again. As many times as it takes. I dissolved the blood blade. She made me for this, Elijah. Ultimate weapon. Time to prove she succeeded. Davina grabbed my hand. You're not doing this alone. Davina. Don't argue. You trained me for months. Made me powerful. Time to use that power. Her eyes blazed. Besides, she threatened you. That makes her my enemy too. I wanted to argue. To keep her safe. But the fierce determination in her expression said she wouldn't back down. Okay, I agreed. Together. We left the compound planning. Strategizing. Preparing for war against the original witch. Because Esther had made a mistake returning to New Orleans. She'd given her victim time to grow strong. To master powers she'd never intended him to have. To build alliances and learn magic and become truly dangerous. And now he was coming for her. The proto-original versus the original witch. Only one of us was walking away from this. And it sure as hell wasn't going to be her.